16th, 2021 at 6 p.m. Our first order of business is to approve the January 19th, 2021 meeting minutes. Did anybody have any changes they needed to make?
No.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. Oh, am I allowed to? I just remembered I was acting chair.
Yeah.
You're fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I make a
Absolutely.
motion to approve the minutes of the January 2021 meeting of the Historical Review Board.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. And so we'll move on to our applications, and we're starting with COA 19-255 amended, and I'm going to hand the meeting over to Audrey Hayden.
Audrey,
Yes.
this is Joe
Yes.
Ballard. I'm sorry, we're waiting on two people to show up. They haven't
Oh,
shown
I'm
up yet.
sorry.
No, that's
okay.
all right. I expected them to be here. So
And why don't we go ahead and call, are they going to be people who are going to present, Joe?
yes.
Okay. Well then, Beth, why don't you call whatever your first one after that is, and we'll come back and we'll watch
Okay,
them.
that sounds great.
thank you.
All right,
Sorry about that.
let's move on to COA 21-05. Julie and Guthrie Wilson, are they here?
Not on
Nope.
my screen.
Okay, we're gonna keep moving down because I imagine people will start to get on. COA 21-12, Jennifer Sissel and Roger Carey for a sign.
And I don't think she was going to be present tonight, but we can go ahead and review that application. It's just an A-frame sign, so I'm okay with going ahead with that
Okay.
one. She wasn't able to make it.
Okay.
Okay.
Is this a temporary sign that they're seeking?
It is. They are a pop-up business, which means they will not be permanently attached to this business, and there isn't an exact contract on how long that is going to last. Rick, so basically they're renting from Mr. Carey, the business, and they just needed an A-frame sign to put out, not a permanent sign. This is just an A-frame sign for outside of their business.
Are other merchants allowed to do an A-frame
Yes.
sign on the street?
Yes. As long as it doesn't stay out all the time, it has to come in when business is not in session.
And then Beth, are they allowed to put special discounts, limited items, those types of things on a A-frame sign, or is it limited to store name and hours?
That is a question for Riche. I
Well,
think the
the whole-
A-frame signs are
The whole
pretty,
store is special items. They won't need to put that on their sign.
Do we have dimensions of this sign?
Yes, they're in the.
If you look on page 8,
Yeah,
Page
24
8.
by 30, 24 by 36.
that's right.
And do we know the material?
Riche, we can't hear you. You're muted.
It's standard sign.
He said, wait just a second. I assume it's just a plastic,
Yeah, it's just a regular.
standard plastic A-frame.
Okay, I'm so sorry. What questions did you all had for me? I had my computer tried to do an update, so I was trying to handle that. I'm so sorry.
Question was, what was the material?
The material is it's kind of a plastic PVC material, but that's been approved with other A-frame signs within the district. For A-frame signs, there isn't a lot of the regs that are specific to that, just as long as it's not too large. And when I looked at the city sign ordinance that regulates for even the temporary ordinance for businesses because of COVID that we're under, the mayor had decreed that one. It actually met the guidelines for that particular instance as well. So it's not over 4 feet in height. It's less than that. And the dimensions seem to be applicable to other A-frame signs that have been approved.
Are there any other questions?
No.
All right, folks, do we have a motion for COA 21-12?
I'll make the motion to recommend approval of COA 2112 with the following conditions. The motion is based that the sign is consistent with the sign standards set forth in section 4 of the Bardstown Historic Design Review Manual.
Do we have a second?
I second that.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. Have we got our people that we need just yet?
I think we're still waiting on one more. We're tracking them down now. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. We'll just keep moving on. Did Julie and Guthrie show up?
We've got Scout and Scholar here.
That's really the only other ones, isn't it, for tonight's agenda, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Aren't we doing Peacock?
Oh, that's just staff approved. Yeah. So
Oh.
that one's been staff approved. So it's,
Okay.
not,
Very good.
so we did.
Well,
get
Can we do the window for Julie and Guthrie
Yeah.
Wilson, or do they need to be here?
I
Because it
think we
seems
can,
like,
go ahead.
I feel like as long as we know that they're using appropriate materials, it seemed like a pretty reasonable window location and placement for us to discuss without them being here.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that one then. Let's just go ahead and get that one, if we can go ahead and talk about that one as well. Because we can be very specific in the requirements from that, and we can go over what kind of is questionable with that one as well. So the main issue is the addition is not, and I guess I can kind of start with the information with that one. The addition is not 50 years old. It is in the 40s, but it is not 50 years old yet. And so what exactly they're wanting to do with this is they're wanting to add a window in the back. Now, the actual windows in the back are larger than the one they're proposing, but that's because this one is going over a kitchen sink. And so in your application, you can see where there's like a little hanging plant thing that's on the wall on the back of the building. That's where they're wanting to install the smaller window. And you can see the other size windows that are also attached with that application. The window I have on here, which is also attached, let's see, it's a wood window and it is simulated divided light. So that means it has an external button, an internal divider, and an internal button on the inside, which is what we require. And the only really difference in that is the size. It's a little bit shorter than the original windows. But again, the purpose of this, the applicant stated, was because there would be a sink right underneath that, the kitchen sink.
And I personally don't find that an atypical thing to see on a home, even a historic home, for the window in a kitchen to be smaller than other places because of the sink.
Very true. I guess my only concern would be, and maybe it's not a concern, I'm just wondering how it lines up with the others. I would rather not see the top of that window be higher than the top of the others. And it probably won't be, but I think that it would look funny if it was.
Yeah, that's a really good.
That would be
That
my only thing, looking at it, that I think it would look funny if it was higher, but it probably won't be. So that would be a condition I think we should specify that they verify with you, Rashay, is, making sure that window, the top of the window doesn't come up higher than the others.
I agree with that. I think that should definitely be a recommendation that is done. It shouldn't be any higher. It can be shorter, of course, than the other original windows, but
Yes.
because it is a new window at the rear of the property on addition that is not historic. So yes, I would agree with that. And I'd say that should be a condition with that. And then also making sure it's simulated divided lights,
Yes.
so we have that in that condition. So we're 100% sure on that. I think is another good thing to put in there as well.
I think make that a requirement that it lines up at the top with the others. And if they have to have a slightly smaller window because of that requirement, then they can get a slightly smaller window.
I would prefer for it to line up. I'm with you.
Yeah, I think that's,
I definitely don't want it to be higher.
Can it line up with both the top and the center rail of the adjacent windows? So that whole, I'm looking at the windows to the right of the doorway. So you have three lights, so you have a total of 9 windows, 9 frames over 6. Can it line up with that top 9? Can that do that? Can it work that way?
Not to the middle if it's a smaller window.
I think
So
that
it-
might,
The one in the picture is 6 over 6.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say, Pat. It's a 6 over 6 window she's proposed.
Which would fit over a sink.
I'm less concerned about it lining up with something on the bottom if it's short, you know, if it doesn't line. I just want the top to line up. I think the bottom will just have to be what it is,
So
because it's
what
gonna
I'm-
also be affected by something on the interior.
Yeah, I get that, but now I'm looking back at the proposed window. The scale and proportion of the 6 over 6 seems to not be the right way to do that. Really, shouldn't it be 3 over 3 to more simulate what's there on the adjacent windows? And so running those, what I consider the black horizontal lines, it seems to be breaking that up into a light that is not typical of what's adjacent, and you wouldn't have seen that kind of proportion in a historic home.
So only have the vertical muttons? Is
Yeah,
that what
only the
you're saying?
vertical.
Okay.
And
No.
then it's
I guess my question would be, what's the size of the lights in the existing windows in comparison to the new ones, right? And if we don't know that, then we really can't make the judgment call on how they should line up or, what's acceptable
No.
in comparison.
And the
First
fact that
Oh, go
on
ahead.
the 9 over 6, the least lights I would want to see on the new window is 6 over 6. Because you're going to be staring at that door, and on your right is going to be 9 over 6, and on your left, a 6 over 6 would be appropriate, especially since it's a 40-year addition rather than a historic
but
portion.
Pat, taking this window that we see and breaking it into 6 by 6, that creates it creates a pattern that's different than what's on the house.
Pat, can you look at page 9? I see what he's saying. Like they're very short, fat panes.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
They're instead of the ones that are existing are taller than they are wide. And then it's the opposite on the new window. They're wider than they are tall. The individual panes, if you want to call it that.
To me,
can we ask you oh, sorry, Rick.
Well, that frame as shown, if it was 3 over 3 with true divided lights, works for me.
Riche, can I ask you your thoughts on what is more appropriate, 6 over 6 or 3 over 3?
Well, unfortunately, the applicant isn't here. So that kind of makes me very sad, because we would ask her what the light sizes are on the current windows. And she stated that the new window matched this, but I have serious doubt that she knows the exact measurements, perhaps, that this maybe isn't an exact measurement of that. So we don't have her here to attest to that. I would say what would be more appropriate is the light sizes being the
Similar.
individual, more in keeping with the historic windows. Instead of having the amount of lights, it's the sizes of those lights to be congruent between the two.
Is this something that you can, like, if we approve this with a condition that she discuss the number of lights with you?
Yeah, I could
that's
do that.
something we can do.
Yeah, and I could work with her. And then, so basically we can approve it with staff approval for conditions to make sure that the sizes of the lights within the windows match.
Or at least are, similarly proportioned.
Yes.
That's hard to say.
Further comment, to the right on the existing house, windows, those are more vertical than horizontal. if you look at the proportion, they're taller than they are wide. So you look at the ones that is being shown for the new one, each light is wider than it is tall. So by removing the two horizontal mullions, you're going to get a scale that fits in proportion. It may be slightly adjusted downward because the windows is smaller, but I don't think you do the horizontal. You do just the verticals.
Well, Rick, are you okay with letting Roche come to the best conclusion about that? Because I agree with you. I think those fat, short, not exactly panes, but lights would look awkward. But from what we have here, it's hard to tell exactly what it will look like. Because this, obviously on page 9, that isn't a 36 by 36 box. It's, it's obviously not totally proportional, I don't think, in the drawing. So are you okay with Roche?
Sure. Yeah.
Staff approving? Okay.
Yeah. We'll state that they have to be wood, simulated divided light, and that the lights need to be more in keeping with the size of the original ones, and then final changes be staff approved. Does everyone agree with that?
Yes, and the top line together.
Yep. Ooh, that's fun. That's a lot of conditions. Okay. One step,
Who's
maybe.
up for this motion?
Yeah, who's up for that one? We all look at Summer like,
Yeah,
I'm writing it down.
I'll do it, and you guys can coach me through it.
okay.
I make the motion to recommend approval of COA 21-05 with the following conditions. My motion is based on the following findings. The single window installation of the addition is consistent with the new construction standards set forth Section 5 of the Bardstown Historic Design Review Manual. This approval is conditioned on Roche working out the final proportions of the lights, and it is also conditioned of all of the mullions being true divided lights. Is that expressed correctly, Roche? We're looking for
Simulated divided lights. Simulated divided lights.
Simulated true divided lights.
Yes. It has to be a wood window. And the top.
It's a wood window.
And sorry, we're specific, super specific. And the last one is the top of the window has to align with the other historic windows on the back.
Yes.
All right. Do we
Was
have
that everything?
I think so. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Mr. Ballard, do we have all our people here?
All right, Ms. Newman, Wadia Newman, are you here? There's 2 Joe Ballard boxes, and I'm wondering if the second Joe Ballard box is Wadia Newman.
But there's no voice.
Oh,
It looks like that's muted, Joe. I think that, I don't know if she.
well, they just dropped. To answer your question, no. David Cook is trying to get on, but he's been having issues, so we're still working with him. I'm sorry, but if you could go to the Bardstown Capital Brewing's application, we'll keep working on it.
Yep.
Go ahead. Do you want to do the provisional staff approval real quick?
Yes.
Okay.
That's COA 21-161, which was a slight change in the sign for Peacock. Can't remember the name of the business.
Yes, Peacock on 3rd.
Yeah, and let's see. Did anybody have any questions about that? It was just a change in the sign, and
It was
based on
basic.
what we had discussed, I told Roche I thought this was a more appropriate design after what we had discussed. So
Everything else remains the same.
Okay.
I mean, I still want it to be turquoise because it's called Peacock, but that's not, it's not business.
But I can actually see somewhat of a peacock now, and I could not before.
I knew Pat was going to be happy about this.
Yeah, so it makes much more sense to me.
Okay, well, I will make the motion to recommend approval of COA 20-161 amended. My motion is based on the following findings. The sign is consistent with the sign standards set forth in section 4 of the Bardstown Historic Design Review Manual.
Yeah, Dave's got it on.
Second,
I will second that.
All in
Alright.
favor?
Aye.
sorry, aye.
Okay.
Excellent. Okay.
So Mr. Ballard, where do we stand?
Nope.
Okay, can we skip to the brewery?
The brewery, so Summer, do you need to,
I'll be recusing myself.
okay. So COA 21-02, Capital Brewing, request to install outdoor trash cans at 112 West Flagey.
Okay, so you guys had asked for some more research into this, and I apologize, I'm gonna have to like find it on my desktop when I know we do the shared option, but I'm not that cool. So give me just a second. So I researched other historic districts and what they have done with trash cans and dining areas. And these are from a lot of different places. I've got it, hold on my phone, where I've cited these people for. So we've got Winchester, Virginia, Franklin, Tennessee, Alabama, and Frederick, Maryland were a few of them that I just pulled from. And for trash cans, basically, a lot of them were that trash cans could not be visible from a street or a public way. And if they were visible, they had to be completely confined in some sort of enclosure. And so that's what they had from almost all of them. So I can read you some, and this one is from, I believe this one is one of the ones from West Virginia, but accessory structures, and this is actually they're including trash receptacles, only in locations that are not visible from the street and cannot compromise the historic character of the site or the district. Now let me pull up another one. So this is Franklin's. Says placement and landscape and/or fencing must hide all trash can receptacles and containers, and that so that they are not visible from a public way. And then I've got another one. This one is street ones, which it's of course city trash cans are allowed, and they mention that, but they mention that city street trash cans are acceptable, but on private property or businesses, let's see. They state that they should not be visible. Let's see, I'm reading that one in. Sorry, I screenshotted all of these. Okay, and the last one, let's see. Yeah, and this one, screen trash cans in any receptacles with wooden or masonry enclosures that are painted a neutral color. So that is what I have from several other historic districts.
Okay, so I guess me reading through the regulations, what I can determine from is the same thing that you're citing, is that as long as they're not visible from the streetscape. So I guess what I would like to bring to the board as far as is the placement of the particular trash can. And also Dana's done her own research and looked into some trash cans that are just like the ones that the city has, basically. So I don't know if what you all have in your materials is not what we wanted to do.
Okay.
And I don't know if this is something that you all can see.
Oh, we can see it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what we have in mind. And the actual placement of this particular receptacle would be up against the building, what we call the solarium. So it would be right outside the doors of the solarium. If you tried really hard, I guess, from the sidewalk and looked through the gates, you could probably see it. From the street, odds are you couldn't. So it's arguable whether or not you would even notice it from the street, but that's probably something that you all would have to determine whether that's applicable here.
Well, those reg for a different city, ours say no trash cans on the exterior. So I'm just,
it says no trash cans, but I think that refers to something that's in the streetscape, does it not?
No.
Because everything that's denied, the way I read it, everything that's denied is basically what's in the view shed of the streetscape. So I don't know if that's just something that we need to clarify, if it's.
It's actually an outdoor dining, David. So it
Okay.
says in outdoor dining standards, it says, it actually states that heat lamps are prohibited as well. We
Yeah, I
have
saw that.
allowed that. But in
Yeah, I saw
outdoor
that.
dining, so in outdoor dining areas, it states that trash cans are prohibited.
Okay,
Um,
so
and-
we're not allowing anyone else in the historic district to do it currently then, right?
We haven't, not since
Okay.
I've been here. If they have any out,
It's
I
not
may not be
approved.
aware. Yeah, it's not approved.
Okay,
So we haven't allowed it, and there was a lot of issues with this that I kind of touched on at the last meeting, and it's not you all. You know what I'm saying? There were businesses that were allowing them to. They had some trash cans. This was way back in the day, so before
Yeah.
I was here, before any of the board members were on board on the HRB, that they allowed trash cans in some instances that were privately owned, and then they weren't being emptied out. They weren't being kept clean. There was vandalism that was occurring. There was just a whole onslaught of issues that occurred with outdoor areas within the historic district that basically allowed these to be prohibited. And so what it boiled down to was the only trash cans that were out in the open area besides dumpsters, you know, your normal trash cans,
yeah,
for outdoor patrons was the ones from the city. And then like places like Mammy's, where they're out, that's the only thing I can really compare you guys to, because they're a pretty large outdoor dining area. They're the only other one I can consistently kind of with your size compare it to. They
Right.
don't have any. They have wait staff that takes the trash and puts it back inside without trash cans being outside.
okay. Yeah, I mean, I have no problem either way. It's whatever you all decide. That's the type of can that we had proposed, and that's just something that the group wanted to have in that outdoor dining area, because there could be, you know, we plan on serving most of the products in glass and stuff that's going to be washed anyway. Events and, you know, things like that is the reason that they wanted a trash receptacle outside. So,
Now, we
I
don't,
imagine for special events, you could have a trash can.
absolutely. Yeah, we're talking about permanent outdoor trash cans to
Yeah.
be there at
I
all
was just
times.
say, can't we just roll these back in
Yeah.
at night? Close
Yeah,
them
I
down?
mean, if you want it, if you have events, you're absolutely allowed to put trash cans out there, no problem. That is not anything I think I speak on behalf, because we talked about this. I don't think I or the board have any issue with that. If anyone does, please speak up. I'm sorry if I misinterpreted that. Any event or anything, you're absolutely allowed to have trash cans
Okay.
out there. I think
but
it's
as far as the permanent fixture, even if it's something such as this one, that's not allowed, right? Even in the outdoor dining area.
it isn't
So-
right now.
Okay.
I have, Rashay, let me just weigh in with a couple comments.
Please do, Rick, please do.
Number one is I think the trash can that David showed is fine from a design standpoint. It's a
Mhm.
big change from what we saw last time.
Yeah, it's a much better design.
I understand the history and what you've faced, but I have always looked at this as a different space that we do not have regulations that control, because it's behind a wall. It has a gate. It's a secured space. It's really what I would label as an outdoor living room, and that type of space we're seeing more and more across the country. So I just put this in a different category than it being an outdoor dining on the street. I just see it as being very different. And Rashay, your own words from the various other places that you researched that said, well, they're okay, trash cans are okay if they're behind a wall, if they're enclosed. Well, it's almost like we have created a situation where the wall has been built. So I see it as being different. The other members of the board may think differently, but I just see this as a different type of space.
Can we see the picture again of the?
David, can you hold that picture up again?
Yeah, I mean, so isn't that trash can technically behind those slats of metal? Or am I imagining that? Is
I
there
mean,
an
I think
insert
that,
inside that?
Yeah, there's actually a liner that goes inside it, and so you wouldn't, the can is down below, I guess, what you would consider that the rim, so.
I think for me, the bigger issue is that if we let you, then other businesses who have similar outdoor dining areas are going to say, oh, we want a trash can too. And then we will have
Yeah, I get that.
a raccoon downtown infestation or something.
I get that.
I mean, either way, we're saying that they're gonna have to empty them every night regardless, right? I mean, isn't that part of the deal?
Yes, well,
It's
absolutely.
in our-
Yeah, and that absolutely would take place, but and you know, I get what Rick is saying too. It's kind of a different space where we do have walls, but the walls are not, you know, they're not contiguous. They have, you know, metal railings that you can actually look through and see through from the street. So you can't deny that, but it is secure. It is a secured space, and it is locked, you know, when we're not open. So I don't know if that makes any difference or not, if it would be something that you could, you know, defensible from other applications, but you know, that's up to you guys to decide. We're okay. It's just something that would have been, you know, handy, obviously, for our staff, but it's mostly for, it's, you know, it'd mostly be for events anyway.
Summer or Rashay, have any comments?
The only thing I'm speaking for the brewery because I recuse myself. The only thing I could say would be, well, for no one's thinking about this right now. With COVID, some of the understanding is that there's a lot of disposable cups and to-go item type things that the people are using now, and they're not using the hard plates and the glass cups. So I don't know if it would be conditional that they could use the trash cans up until outside until COVID is over. Just throwing that out there. I know it's just something to think about, because I know,
and that's a good point, Summer, and that brings up something else that I thought about. You know, I'm not crazy at all about people smoking out on that patio, but we almost have to allow it. And you know, we don't or can't have, what I understand, any type of receptacle for that. So they just throw the cigarette butts on the ground or on our patio or wherever in the landscaping and such. So you know, that's I guess it goes hand in hand with that for me.
people would be able to put their cigarette out and then put it in the trash can.
Yeah, I mean, not saying that they would use the trash can for that, but I guess it goes hand in hand with that type of receptacle. If you're not going to allow a trash can, we can't have that type of receptacle to keep that litter off the ground. And that's kind of where we're going with it, is just to keep that space attractive and make sure that, you know, no garbage is laying around where our staff has to go around and pick it up. So that was the whole idea.
David, you've got me really confused now. Why would smoking be allowed in a restaurant?
It's outside.
Or
It's outside. It is absolutely allowed outside. It's not allowed inside.
Okay.
Well, and I'm just bringing this up, but there are, you know, within the city limits, there are cigarette receptacles for people to put their cigarettes in, with, you know, on the city sidewalks.
There's trash cans too. So,
right.
You know,
right.
but that's like Rashay stated, that's allowed under city, you know, the city receptacles are allowed, but, and I get what you guys are saying. If you let us do it, then it opens the door for other instances. But, you know, there again, you know, with the cigarette smoking, until something's done there, I mean, we can't stop that. And there's really nowhere that they can throw that litter, you know, other than on the ground and on our patio and in our landscaping, you know.
Rashay,
Yep,
are those
I'm here.
little bitty cigarette butt things, are those not allowed either?
I'm sure they're probably not. I'm sure with everything else that's restricted, I'm sure that they're like nothing else. Absolutely not. So what do you
That's
guys
considered
think?
a trash receptacle.
My
Yeah,
other question
you're right.
is, one, I think someone who serves liquor should be able to have those little, those little skinny things that you drop your cigarette butt in. But I don't write the rules. I'm here. I'm just an enforcer.
Yes.
Rashay, question is, if it were a mobile trash can, something attractive that had wheels that was wheeled in every night.
I mean, I think that's not permanent. It's mobile. It's moved every day. It's the same thing with the lanterns. They're not permanent. That's how we've approved the lanterns per se, is the heat lamps. I'm sorry. I keep calling them lanterns. I'm sorry, guys.
Heat lamps
yes, that they're moved in and out. Also, David, the chief Mattingly spoke to me about those. So there are kind of some requirements about storing those. So you'll have to get together with him. I did not know that. He messaged me after the meeting.
Okay.
So I wanted to make sure that we kind of mentioned that. So you'll have to talk to him about what's required for those lanterns, heat
Be
lamps.
kept inside.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
So
They
he's got
probably
some.
require the tanks to be removed and put outside.
Yeah.
We have that's a good point.
So please do get with him.
They have like a lean-to that their trash cans go in and their heat things go in? I'm not trying to design.
Yeah,
anything.
I was thinking, oh God, here I go, David, giving you more stuff to do. If there was an area where you built like a potential like small privacy fence area, you know what I mean, around the building or at the back of the building, and it was placed there that was still where people couldn't get to it.
Yeah, we have, we had talked about that rear stairwell that we have. We had talked about maybe screening part of that, the under the stairwell, and that could be something that could potentially hide stuff like that. But that's definitely a possibility.
Okay, that was kind of what I was envisioning at this point once I realized that he had specific regs about those being stored. So he was kind enough to mention that to me after the last
I appreciate that. That's a good point.
Yeah. So with trash cans, if they were wheeled in and out or stored somewhere, I'm okay with that. I get worried about other businesses, David, and you know exactly, you can feel me when I say this.
Yes.
It's not you all at all. I'm worried about other businesses that, may reach out and want this. And,
And I understand that completely. And I get where you guys are coming from, but I do, if I could make one point as far as that is concerned, it's not uncommon, and as you all are well aware, to walk through the city parking lot and after, a weekend's night of all the businesses that are adjacent to that parking lot, that you find beer bottles, trash, there's quite a bit of stuff that's in the city parking lots and on the streets, after the fact. And whether having trash cans out would remedy any of that or not, that's probably conjecture. But
so what if we, Lord, what does the board think? I don't want to not help you guys. I agree that there's plenty of times walking around, and Summer brought this up the last meeting, that there's a lot of times where the city trash cans unfortunately are overflowing because patrons are using them as not having a last resort of being able to have access to something like that in the area that they're frequenting. So what does the board think? Are they thinking give a minimum of 2 trash cans and have them be there permanently, and then have other ones for larger events more added and then those taken out? Or what is the board thinking with this? Or are they thinking nothing at all?
I think if we allow this, it has to be within an enclosed space. Mm-hmm. That has to be a requirement because other people are going to ask. So it has to be within an enclosed space that cannot be accessed after business hours.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Other than like breaking in, we're not in charge of that. Like climbing a fence or whatever, we can't.
Aren't they technically in an enclosed space then? Because
this is an enclosed space, but we have a couple of other businesses that have enclosed spaces that are probably going to request this after this happens. So if we're going to do this, we have to put some very specific things in place, some requirements, if we're going to allow. Because it's not like some of the restaurants that have tables outside of their business and then they have a trash can. This is a slightly different space, but if we're going to allow this, we have to have requirements for it that are consistent. across other businesses. And I think that would include, I would prefer that they get put away at night and that they're emptied every night. But that those are my two requests. And other people might be okay with permanent trash cans as long as they're emptied every night. And there might be other things that other people want that insist upon it. In Summer, I know that this is your COA, but I would like your input on requirements that going forward if we allow this.
Yes, so I think with everything we've discussed tonight, the fact that the trash cans would be behind a semi-enclosed space, the trash cans that have been specified are a premium style trash can that does have an enclosure built around the actual, plastic trash can, if you will. I'm comfortable with the trash cans being left out all the time, as long as they're emptied at nighttime. And to be quite honest, I would probably be comfortable with that with most businesses downtown. And the reason I say that is because, we were just downtown for Valentine's, and every place had a trash can outside, you guys, and it was one of the big, ugly plastic black trash cans.
Yeah.
And so if we were to allow a nicer trash can with the condition that people had to empty them in the evening, every night, then every place would be more aesthetically pleasing. So that is my opinion on the trash cans.
What about the number of trash cans, David? How many are you wanting?
We just wanted the one.
Oh, just one? Oh, well, that's
initially we wanted 4, but since we
here, Dana.
You shoot for the moon, right?
I love her. I love her so much. I hear her and I get excited.
We just wanted the one. It was just one to be convenient for the servers coming back in from the outdoor space to be able to access, instead of having to take trash past customers inside the solarium and past customers to get to a trash can. So that was the whole thing for us. And if you have events, if it's Bourbon Festival and such,
events
you're allowed
not,
to put out other cans. That's perfectly fine. We just wanted the one up against the building.
Okay.
and then
HRB, what are you thinking then?
And eventually, as Dana's poking me in the ribs over here, wanting me to say, she's hoping that the city would extend the use of trash cans down Flagey and hopefully we could get a city trash can or receptacle in front of the brewery, and then we'd also like to have one of those nice benches too. So
and David, seriously, you can, the mayor, that's who you need to request that from, because I completely understand, and you are not the first person to request this. A lot of people are bringing this up and the need for more benches down on Flagey and more trash cans. So if you could talk to him about that, honestly, I think it'd be doing the community an entire service. It's not just for you.
Absolutely will.
Okay, yeah.
That's something Dana will make sure that I do that.
And if you have anyone that needs to back you up, I've had a lot of complaints from a lot of different people. So I've probably had 15 to 20 complaints about the lack of trash cans and benches on Flagey. Right. So please, if you need me to be a part of that conversation, let me know, because it is something that is an issue.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. HRB, where are we at?
Okay, so if we're going to make this motion to approve, what are our requirements? If it's me, I'm going to say they have to be put inside. They need to be like a premium trash can, preferably on wheels. But if you all want to make it not permanent, a permanent trash can outside in an enclosed, fully enclosed dining area.
The only issue with the nicer trash cans and bringing them in, they're usually pretty heavy. I would assume. I don't know that. I'm just thinking about the city trash cans, and they're pretty heavy duty. I think it would take 2 to 3 people to pick them up and move them.
Well,
and I guess you could put. I'm sorry. What?
It would have to.
I guess you could put casters on them. Yes, I guess you could do that. So that could be for consideration.
But it's also, that's part of the reason that they are so heavy, is so that people don't bump into them and then fall, or they fall over. You know what I'm saying? So the stability of it being that heavy is actually one of the perks of having them on the street. So in other words, unless a car hits it, it's not supposed to topple over. You know what I mean? So that it's supposed to be static, not moving with those type of trash.
So if we want a nicer trash can, do we ask for the casters, or is that more of a safety issue?
I think we're getting safety. It's a safety issue. Because of the nicer trash cans, and I think when we make this motion, and God, Summer, we don't have you. Get ready, other members, hugs and love. I think that it has to be noted that it's on a case-by-case basis in which we approve this, just like the outdoor heaters with its own, for each property, it's unique. And that for each set of, each location, we have to consider the pros and cons of that particular location. So if you were to allow a much nicer trash can such as this one to go out there, it could be permanent. It doesn't have to be hidden. I don't think, because it's in an enclosed wall fence dining area, I don't think that having it concealed inside a smaller wall inside that would be required. If it was a crappy plastic one, I would completely feel different about that. But because it's one of the really nice steel ones that matches the city ones, at least very closely, it doesn't hurt me to see that. Does that make sense? I don't know if anyone else agrees with me or not.
No, I
totally agree.
It's an attractive for a trash can.
Yeah.
It's very attractive.
Yeah.
So we're prove this based on it being an enclosed space, requirement that it is emptied every night.
Yes.
And that this is a case by case consideration. It's not something we will just approve across the board with any business. It's completely dependent on the business, because we are not following the regulations. We're making an exception, and it has to be considered each time, just like with the heaters, like you said.
Yep.
All right, so who's up?
I'll try it. Okay, so I will make a motion to recommend the approval of COA 21-02 with the following conditions. That my motion is based on the findings that the trash cans are not consistent with outdoor dining standards set forth in Section 4 of the Bardstown Historic Design and Review Manual, that on a case-by-case basis, we are studying those, and said trash can has an attractive design. It shall be emptied nightly, and in this case shall be allowed.
And because it's in a secure enclosed area.
Yes. Very good.
Second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Thank you, guys. Excellent.
I'm gonna say nay, just even
Okay.
though I'm okay with it. I just want a nay on the record for.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you, Beth.
Welcome.
Okay,
Thanks.
so we've
Thank
got,
you,
that
guys.
did pass 3-1. So David, you are good to go with that one. And for other events, you're allowed to have other trash receptacles. So that
Okay.
isn't a question. We know that that's a requirement. We know what Bourbon Festival is like, and we hope that there are other businesses that temporarily have other trash cans out there, for sure.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, are we gonna finish up the Capital Brewing, Bardstown Capital Brewing, and then move back?
Yes. I hope.
Okay. All right, so this is COA 21-04, the roof for the pergola.
One thing too, and I don't know if this makes a difference legally or not, what you guys are doing, but the actual legal name is Bourbon Capital Brewing, and all the COAs, it's Bardstown Capital Brewing. So I don't know if you need to.
I will change that. No one, when I sent I'd asked, it was wrong on the application, so we will make that.
Okay,
change.
sorry about that. Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. No,
That might have
please
been my mistake. I don't know if I might have made that mistake. Sorry, David.
No worries.
So Bourbon Capital Brewing. Okay, cool. I don't know if it was you, Summer. I don't think it was. Okay, but anyways, okay, so we're doing the pergola. Rick, do you want to talk about this, or do you want me to start off with my research?
We can do it either way. I'd like to hear from David and Dana first.
Okay.
As to what's your intent? Are you trying to keep the weather off of people under there? Are you trying to protect from inclement weather? Are you just
I'm
what's
sorry,
the
Rick, go
intent
ahead.
of what's the intent of what you're really trying to get to?
Well, it's pretty much twofold what we're wanting to do. I think we've put some fairly expensive furniture under those pergolas with, and I think it was a design mistake, in my opinion. It's got some, Dana's laughing at me over here.
I heard it. I know. I was
Some,
like, oh, Dana laughed.
it has some, some cushions and, fancy stuff that we're trying, and we've found that we've left those out in the weather and they soak up moisture like a sponge. And then after a rain event, if we don't pull all those cushions and bring them inside every time that we have,
We don't have anywhere to store them inside.
bad weather, we really don't have anywhere to store them inside everywhere. Then they soak up moisture like a sponge, Rick, and it's 2 or 3 days before we turn them up on their corner and it drains out and we can use them again. So our hopes and thoughts is that, if we had covering over the pergola, that it would shield that furniture from additional, weather events. And then the other thing is yes, I mean, if you've got some light rain and people are sitting out there and they're enjoying the fire pits, that they could stay out there under those roofs. And some shade, obviously. But that's kind of, the main thought is to protect the furniture and such underneath.
So just so you know, conceptually, I like the pergola. I like having it protected. It just sort of makes sense. I deal with this sort of subject in many locations. I'm going to say that you're going to probably go down a slippery slope, because you're going to find that you maybe need drop down sides where you have some sort of plastic that can come down to further protect. You're going to get partial coverage as high as the top of the pergola is, but you're going to get driving rain coming from the side that's going to create the same problem. So I think you'll need to look at what sort of drop down sides that you have. That would be a point. You may have to look at light fixtures and fans underneath of the roof structure at some point. And then I have a question that's more, Summer may be able to help this. Do you have to, how would you put heaters underneath of this? And if so, do you ultimately have to put sprinklers in there? Do you get into some code issues? And ultimately, is this going to be treated as a building? At what point does the pergola start being designated as a building that starts having different standards?
Yes, sir. And no, we have no plans whatsoever to add any type of heat or even sides, drop down sides on the pergola. We wanted those to stay, open air, just for the aesthetics. And then we have the fire pits that provide, some amount of heat that people kind of like to huddle around those fire pits. And the fire pits are permanent. We also had been approved for the standing heaters that are outside. So, we would use those mostly around the open tables and such, instead of the pergola. But yeah, the heat had been discussed at one time, Rick. We had talked about some radiant heaters, and but that was all before we had settled on doing the fire pit. So what you see, that structure is all that we have planned for. We didn't have any plans for sides at all.
Okay. I agree with you. I think if you would have fully, I know you thought through a lot on this. It's a fabulous place. I commend you for it. I love it. I think if you would have thought through the functionality of the pergola area, you maybe would have designed it differently to begin with. But we have to deal with what's there today.
Yeah, I don't disagree with what you've said. I mean, it's you know, those were actually, they were moved. I think the first thought that we had, they were spread out, and that actually are two pergolas that they're just really close together. That looks like one. They were actually originally going to be spread out in different locations in the space, but when we changed the pavers and the tables, when that all got rearranged, it ended up those getting pushed together and being where it is. And I don't disagree with you. There probably could have been some more thought that went into it, but
do you have any type of covers that you put over the couches at night, the sofas? Do you have?
They're actually being made now to cover the chairs and the outdoor sofas to try to mitigate some of that weather issue.
Got it. Rashay, what's your thoughts?
Okay, so I did more research. Yay! I was just a little researching preservation coordinator. So hold on one second. So with pergolas from several different cities, mainly, it stated that, for instance, this one is Virginia, and it states that pergolas shall not obstruct character defining elements on primary or any side facades visible from a street. So kind of specific about where it's going and what it looks like. Okay. And then let's see. I'm pulling up some more. Hold on. Okay. And it stated, so this one, let's see, I'm going to pull up the city real quick. Give me just a moment. So this one is from Winchester. Any new pergolas, of course, this is not now, should not be visible from the public right of way or any street. Can only be constructed at the back of the property at real elevations where they are not visible. Okay, new pergolas must be compatible with the building to which they relate in proportion, size, scale, material. And then it talks about it says new pergolas have to be constructed that allow, and it says, and that are attached to an existing structure will allow for the pooling of moisture against or the infiltration of moisture against the existing structure and shall be drained accordingly. And then as far as covering them, I'm pulling this one up. Let's see. It states that any type of covering is usually, one city had it, and it was in Alabama. They were the only ones that mentioned about covering a particular pergola. And basically it stated that they wanted them to be, if they were to be covered, it had to be with a material that's consistent with the main structure. So very similar things that we kind of all talked about. And that's what I've got, Rick. I couldn't find a whole lot about it specifically that related to, you know, if they were built to be uncovered and then covered, what we do about that. There wasn't a lot of research out there that I could locate.
In my mind, it strictly comes down to what was the intent of the original pergola, and does the roof structure change that intent?
Rick, I don't know if you were here when they brought this to us, but they did want, initially they asked for a roof, and I think we didn't deny anything. They just pulled it. They wanted a clear corrugated roof, and we knew that we weren't going to approve that, so they just pulled it and made it without a roof.
That's right.
The construction of the pergola was constructed, Rick, as such to accept a roof because it was built with a pitch. I think, and Beth is correct. I mean, I think initially they wanted to put like a clear corrugated thing on there, and that was not allowed. So originally our intent was to have a top on it. We just didn't select the right material the first time around, and we were hoping that going with a different material or something that was more acceptable would be acceptable.
David, let me ask you about the slope. You said they're built with a pitch. Which way are they pitched?
They're pitched away. They're pitched away from our building towards the drive, towards our drive.
Okay, so the slope is from, like, if I'm looking at the building, from right to left. It's
Correct.
It's not from front to back. Okay.
Correct. So
I was thinking
it
if
would
it was
be on
front
the
to back, you wouldn't really be able to see the roof at all because it can't be pitched very much.
Yeah,
but
they're
it's
pitched from
to the
right
left.
to left. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So if they're close together, does that mean one would like drain right into the other one?
No, they pitch in the same direction. They both are kind of just right beside one another, so they both pitch in the same direction, both perfect.
One's in front of the other, kind of. Beth.
Okay. I'm
Yeah.
seeing there. Okay, well, that makes sense. And
Not much of a pitch. I mean, it's like a 1/12 pitch, I think.
Yeah.
But, it's enough for corrugated roofing, but it's not much of a pitch.
And I'm not in here. Summer, could you point us to the right? Is it page 11?
Sorry, I'm not on that COA.
Like what this would look like, what color it would be. Okay, look at, page 13 and 14, I think would be the best.
Okay, so 13 and 14, where we have the colors and then the different styles of the roof.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you actually go to page 11, the image 2 is what we were suggesting to use, which is a standing seam panel with a 1-inch raised seam. And we could do 12 or 16 between seams. For this small of a roof, I would suggest 12. But I would like to hear what, if anyone else has a different opinion on that. I just thought proportionately, maybe the 12 would look better. It would have
that's for the seam in between. The 12 inches is in between the seams. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. And what else here? Like I said, it would have a concealed fastener. As far as color is concerned, I think we were wanting the black. We currently have a black roof on the brewery, I believe. Is that right, David?
It's like it's more of a brown.
Oh, okay.
And but yeah, it's that brown shingle, or I guess it would be gray and brown mix, right? I don't know, Dana.
Okay.
He's better at that than I am. It's kind of it's more dominant brown.
Okay, so the color, the color could be a different color. It could be that burnished slate color, which we've used a lot. It's a really pretty, like dark bronze color. A dark color would be great.
Yeah, we have a lot of black accents on the building also.
Yeah, what color are the lamps that are outside?
Black.
Yeah, I think the roof, if we go with this, it should be black. We shouldn't try to match the roof on the building.
Sure. I think black would look nice. And then of course you all know, and in Bardstown, things tend to turn black. So you wouldn't maybe have the issue of it looking dirty if we went with the black roof, right?
Yes.
I think that was our thought process. It's been a minute since I thought about this, to be honest with you. So that was, so the panel, the image 2 with either the 12 or 16 inch gap, if you will, between the two seams is what we're proposing. And I don't think I put on there like a specific gauge, but we would do a 24 or 26 gauge, which are both available.
And it would be flat in between the seams. There would be no little ridges or anything, correct, Summer? I want to make sure of that because we were.
Yeah, well, if you look at this, so there's what we call striations, and every standing seam roof has striations for the most part, which helps to eliminate oil canning Now you can eliminate oil caning more so by going with heavier gauge metal, but you can see how the striation, how there's two different ones. Like on the image 2 cut sheet, you have the top striations, and then the bottom says minor ribs. So we could go with either one. The striations are so minimum, you don't.
Yeah, I think
hold.
that's what we want. It's it's the minor ribs that we accidentally approved once, and
You didn't like those?
Inappropriate.
Yeah,
Okay.
we got some bad feedback from the state on that one.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So just the striations on the top, you have to have a little bit of something. You kind of have to have a little bit. And so that would be fine. We could go with that striation and not the minor rib.
Yeah, so we would need it to be as smooth as possible in between the seams.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like that would look more historic, I guess, or more appropriate for the area, I guess, wouldn't it?
It would, yeah. That
Now,
is absolutely correct.
Riche, I know you had some misgivings about putting roofs on these. Can you discuss that with us, please, ma'am?
Well, I worry about the overall visual impact of it, because, you know, and this is something we talked about before, the light airiness of it, you know, it's open, it's visible, and putting large roofs on these pergolas aren't small, and putting roofs on them, I don't know how it's going to overall affect the visual continuity of the entire space. But that's my opinion. As I said, finding guidelines specifically to this was really difficult across the United States, because it goes over pergolas for sure, but covering pergolas, it doesn't give a lot of specifications except for the one that I mentioned. So I would just caution it. You know, I love the design of it. I love the open feel of it. I don't want it to be too closed in, but I also worry about the materials. You know, the roof is a shingle roof on the main structure, and we're going to standing seam on the other one. I'm going to have to defer to you all on how you feel about that as a design.
And I'm sorry, Riche, but I had talked to our construction superintendent about this today, and asked, you know, if there could have been any other type of material. And this is something that I don't know. This is what he told me, but our pitch isn't enough to allow us to put a shingle roof on it. If we could, it would have to be a higher pitch.
And to be honest, I can't say this is, you know, I don't know if that would look right, having a shingle roof on it. That I don't think it would, you know. Those are just things that I have tried to take into context when trying to research it. You know, so, and I know we'd all talked about a standing seam roof on your main structure, and that was changed, of course. There was issues with that, that we had to work with. So that's really everything that I have to say about it. So you guys can give a good discussion kind of going forward of what you all think. So what does everyone else feel?
I mean, personally, not as a member of this, I would rather it was the clear stuff, because that would leave the airiness. But I know that does not fit into our regs at all. But I'm okay with a standing seam roof, because it's so thin. Yes, it will make shadows, but I mean, that's kind of what we want, right? You know, in the summer, it's going to be blazing hot out there. Some shade will be nice. But that's how I feel about it. How about anybody else?
We have a photo of it, like looking from the sidewalk, like straight on, or the street, like a street view of the pergola. Is everybody?
There is on the Facebook page, Dana said. I don't know how easy that is for you to access.
I think I pulled that and put that in the application. I think I did.
Let me look and see.
But
well, that's yeah, but that just shows the solarium. I think what's on the application, right? It doesn't show. But on the Facebook page, is that what you're saying is on the Facebook page?
Well, I think there's more pictures on the Facebook page.
Yeah, Dana said she thinks there is an angle that you can see it from the Facebook page.
All right.
What is it called on Facebook? Bourbon Capital Brewing?
Scout and Scholar Brewing.
Scholar, duh.
This is Pat. If we're going to roof a pergola, I'm comfortable with the material and the pitch that you have suggested here.
I mean, it's not a full picture, but it's.
There's one on the Facebook page Dana has found, if you guys have had any luck with it. I'm sorry, Pat, to interrupt.
No.
Here's another one.
Are you all finding it? I don't know if you can see it on my phone. Probably not the best.
I can kind of see it, yeah.
Kind of see it, yeah.
I just figure everybody's got this in their
Oh,
memory.
yeah, back it up a
So
little bit.
that's
Here
a
too.
from inside.
Okay, can you see it?
wall,
Okay,
right?
if I back it up, you can see it better.
Yes.
Yeah.
What about mine?
So
That's inside the wall, right? That photo?
Yeah, that's inside the wall.
that's right.
Okay. So from the street, it's going to be even less, I guess, noticeable.
Yeah, from the street, you've got the stone walls, and the, on both sides of the main gate, and then the stone walls that run down to the man gate or the walk-through gate.
There's another picture.
That's also inside the walls, yeah.
I guess my only question, it will just be the standing seam roof. There won't be like board underneath that to attach it to. It will just attach straight to those cross pieces.
No, yeah, it's actually constructed with the slats substantial enough to support the standing seam roof. So there wouldn't be any other type of decking applied. It would just be the material, the metal material.
Okay, because I
And
wouldn't
are we
want
doing
anything
anything with the drainage?
thickness.
The
You said-
drainage would fall onto our drive. So we've got a rock drive, and I don't know, Dr. Blackman, if that was visible on those Facebook pages
No,
or
it
not.
wasn't.
But we have an access drive that goes to the left of those pergolas. So the drainage would actually fall on that gravel drive of ours.
Okay. So you're not talking about like a gutter or anything. It's just going to.
No. Yeah, it would just
Right.
run off the lower end, and it would drip onto the gravel drive.
Gotcha.
I'm okay with like a standing seam roof is very thin. I'm okay with that.
Okay with it if it's flat in between the seams and we avoid the conflict we had previously. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
I need.
do you want to see a sample before it goes up, Rashay? Would that be appropriate? A sample of the roof before it goes on?
I know I'm giving like questioning. If they can send they can even email it to me. I don't even have to see it in person. If they email me a picture to make sure that it's going to be flat in between the seams and I'll have little humpy ridges. Do you know what I'm talking about? Summer, I know you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
I know what you're talking about.
David,
know
that's
what you're talking
about. I don't want that either.
Too. I'm like the little in
Yeah,
between
the
the
striations. Yeah, we don't
You
want
got
that
it.
either. Yeah.
No, flat. To resemble a historic one would be, I think the most appropriate.
I think if you look at page 14 of the application, and Summer, you might stop me if I'm speaking out of turn, but there's shown a vertical seam and it shows a flat pan on page 14. I think that's what Rashay is referring to.
Yes, she is. That's right.
Pretty please.
Okay. Well, if there are no more questions, do we have a motion? And are we going to include an image to Rashay of the actual, what it looks like?
We just do staff approval. Final
We
approval?
can. Yeah, we can. And that way, if there is some other changes, that could cover that.
Okay, I make a motion to recommend the approval of COA 21-04 with the following conditions. My motion is based on the following findings: that the pergola roof's installation are consistent with outdoor dining standards set forth in Section 4 of the Bardstown Historic Design and Review Manual. This standing seam roof with 12-inch ribs with 12-inch seams will have minimal striation with no minor ribs, and prior to installation, a picture will be taken presentation to Riche so that it can be finally approved.
Can we include color in the final?
And it's black, yes.
Well, can we let Riche, like if they decide to change the color, Riche can staff approve?
If any changes are made to this design, those could be staff approved by Ms. Jennings.
Thank you.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Excellent.
Did Rick vote?
Thank you all.
Yes.
No,
Yeah.
And then we just have the one more, David, which is the sign.
Right.
Yes.
21-11.
Yeah, so I'll help you out with that one, David, if you want.
yeah.
Sure, yep. Take it away.
All right. So we're just wanting to do a simple panel sign with the bracket coming off of the building on the sidewalk side. I could send Riche a picture of that bracket tomorrow, but it's just traditional, kind of a flat black scroll bracket, 2 chains. The panel itself, I don't recall those dimensions off the top of my head. I think it's 32 by
36 by 32, Andy, is what I've got.
30. Yeah, 36 by 32.
36
So
high, 32 wide.
Yes.
the center panel will be 1.5 inches thick, and then each of the emblems will be raised 3/4 inch on each side. And then the colors are what's in that image as far as the colors for the sign.
Okay, it's nice
Very
looking.
good.
I guess the only question is the bracket, and if we can have that run by Riche. Is that cool, Riche?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I should have probably sent, because Leslie had given me that bracket. I just forgot to shoot a picture of it, but yeah, it's just a traditional. It's actually a nicer looking bracket than some of the other brackets downtown. I don't know if they had that custom made or where they found that at exactly, but I could send Riche a picture of that tomorrow.
Dana said it's Wayfair.
Very fair. Well, it's a good looking bracket.
Gotta love it.
All right, any other questions?
No.
Do we have a motion for COA 21-11?
Make the motion to recommend approval of COA 21-11. Motion is based on the following findings. The sign addition is consistent with the sign standards set forth in section 4 of the Bardstown Historic Design Review Manual.
Second,
I'll second that.
all in favor? Aye.
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 And
All right.
Andy, do you
Yep.
please send me that bracket though, so I can take a look at it.
Oh,
Sure.
right.
First thing tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Have a good
Thank
evening.
you all.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Andy. Thanks,
Thank
David.
you all.
Thank you all.
Mm-hmm. Good night.
Now, do we have, let's see, do we have everybody we need?
Joe Ballard.
Yes, well, Miss Newman, are you here?
If she's under you, her mic is muted.
Yeah, if I'm guessing is that you?
Hello?
Is that you, Miss Newman?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know why it says Joe Ballard. I emailed the link to her, but
That's why.
what about
That's okay.
What about David Cook?
He seems like he's by phone, Joe. There's someone that's called in, but not by video.
So are they able to speak, Audrey?
I think so.
I don't see a
I
box.
don't know how he
Let's see.
I don't know how he unmutes, because you can see him if you look at the participants on the side. He shows he's called in on this 249-2260 number, but I'm not sure how he gets to talk. I mean, he's not muted.
He's just
But I
not.
think since he's,
Oh, wait a
he's
sec.
showing up.
Oh,
Wait,
I
Dave,
see it.
David, can you unmute your microphone? Check the bottom left corner of your screen. There's a little microphone that has a mute. It says mute, maybe.
Or if you touch your screen, it might be up at the top.
But see, you can dial in and not be through like the Zoom
Right.
link. So I'm
He
not
was
sure.
he was having trouble doing this zooming in, so he just called in. And he's been listening in. I know he's heard everything.
Okay.
Well, I'm trying to. There are a few things I'd ask for him to add.
Well, Joe, what I was going to suggest, Joe, is could you potentially call him? I don't know if you're on your computer, but could you call him from your cell phone and put him on speaker or something like that? You know, to bring him in that way.
We can. The only problem is I'm on a headphone, but
okay.
My video. I tell you what. Give me 1 second. Let me see if we can figure this out.
Beth, do you want to consider the meeting briefly adjourned or something for a minute, or take a motion for a brief adjournment? Or do you just want to wait a minute? I don't know how long he's going to be.
Roche, I don't know. What should we do?
I mean, we could take a break. I don't know if, well, oh, nope.
Let's just wait a second. Let's just wait.
Yeah.
I think they're getting it together.
All right.
There we go.
All right.
All right, Dave.
Okay. Okay.
You on here, Dave? Wait a minute.
Put it close to the.
I'm going to hand the meeting over to Audrey Hayden. No.
Okay. Joe, it sounds like we've got Mr. Cook there. Is that right?
Yeah, we don't have.
Wait one more second. I'm sorry.
Oh,
that's okay.
I don't use my headphone, right?
We can hear you, sir, without the headphones.
I think he's just, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I think we're ready.
Okay, Joe. Well, so here's sort of how I wanted to go forward. So I don't know if you would like to note your objections now, or if you intend to bring those up during the course of when you present information. So if you want to bring those up now before we begin, I'm happy to let you go ahead and do that, unless you just want to incorporate them into what you're going to talk about.
I don't know. I don't know that it matters, Audrey.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, and then I'll just note any objections when I present.
Well, okay. Well, I'm going to have Roche speak for a few minutes, and I would ask all the members of the Historic Review Board to hold any questions or comments until Roche's presented and Mr. Ballard's presented on behalf of Mr. Conway, just to kind of let them get through the information. So if you just want to make a note to yourself, if something comes up you'd like to ask about further, just save that question until they're finished presenting. So Roche, if you want to go ahead, and I'm going to mute myself because my baby's supposed to go to bed here soon and she'll be crying in the background. So I'm going to mute myself. And Roche, if you want to go ahead and start speaking to this application.
Okay, so Mr. Conway had submitted some applications to us starting in December of 2019. And basically he had several, he had a new addition, of course, that he applied for, and other changes that he wanted to make with the structure. So the application was written as basically what the plans that you all had seen. I don't know if every board member was here during that whatsoever. But what occurred is there was a portion of the application that was presented that was, as you all can see, in 19-255 amended. This is the application we're referring to. And it had information listed in it about what they were doing with the new construction, et cetera, et cetera. So as I write the applications once I receive the information. And when I do that, I send out the application back to the individual HRB. You all get those as well. So about the same time that you all are getting that, all of the applications are posted, is right around the same time that I also send that back out to the applicant. I have a very lengthy, nice letter that I've worked hard on to put together that states that, you know, if there's any issues with it or anything that's incorrect, please let me know ASAP so I could change it. Because, you know, that's what we need to do, is to correct those kind of things. So the application was written, and it was sent back to Mr. Conway and his people. And basically it stated within that, I wrote the application for new construction. And so you all can see that, and we all reviewed that. And there were no changes that were requested for me to change anything in those applications. So everything was tabled in December of 2019, and then also was resent back out in January, and no changes were also corrected or asked for during the January HRB meeting. So as it was written, the meetings, I think you all can kind of see that what was written on the application summary was that the applicant wishes to install new windows on the addition. So goes into a little bit more detail to that. And then also in review findings, it states that this was the original application, that the windows would be reviewed for the addition. So that was listed on there as well. And then the motion to approve, which we all know new construction is in section 5 and historic windows are in section 4. So the motion was to approve COA 19-255 in section 5 with the new construction standards in the Bardstown Historic Design Review Manual. So the motion was even for new construction versus regular windows, which would be for the historic portion of the window. So I have listened to the audio from both of those meetings very carefully, and we never discussed the original windows in that time period. We only discussed the windows for the addition. So none of the original windows for the original structure were ever discussed for that. So given this recommendation, what has occurred is the original windows on the original structure were replaced. It is absolutely my recommendation that the original windows be put back in and repaired on the original structure, because what has been replaced is cannot be considered as in kind. So an in-kind replacement means that the windows have to be built to exact specifications. They have to match dimensions. They have to be, everything in keeping with what the new original window was, exact replica of the original window. These are simulated divided lights. They're not necessarily exactly the same size as the original windows. And so I would not recommend that the windows that have been replaced be kept. And then Audrey, is there anything else that I need to speak on behalf of?
And Riche, I just would like, I guess, for you to, if you can just speak very briefly to if there's a difference between the manual, the guidelines for historic versus new construction windows and what the difference would be. Because you talked about in-kind and those kind of things, but if you can just sort of discuss that very briefly.
So basically, historic windows, the whole precedent and basic guidelines for federal rules and for our local guidelines is that we are to retain historic windows. So they are supposed to be repaired and they're supposed to be maintained, because that's part of the integral portion of what makes the property historic, is keeping those kinds of elements. So historic windows are meant to be repaired and kept. And in new construction, however, we know that it's a new window. So the properties of new construction windows can be very much so different. The National Park Service has approved simulated divided light windows for new construction, which was approved on the addition for Mr. Conway's application.
Mr. Ballard, I know you've got several folks here, so I'll turn it over to you unless Riche has anything else.
Okay, thanks. I've got a slideshow that I'm going to try to share with everybody. Can everybody see that? All the board members, can you see that? Just make sure.
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. First thing that we object to is on the agenda. It states that the windows were installed without permission. We dispute that, and actually there's a lawsuit that's pending that we're arguing over that. But the hope is we could come before you all today in order to clear this issue up. So the address is 215 West Stephen Foster Avenue. Here's a picture of it at the time Mr. Conway purchased the house, which was done. There's the back part. He bought this house in May 29th, 2019. December 1st, 2019, he applied for the project and submitted his plans to the director. Here's a copy of the critical plans for this. Wadia Newman, who's an architect that's worked on a number of houses in Bardstown before, including historic houses, I believe, prepared these plans. And this is as they were on the application. Wadia, have I misstated anything there?
No, that's correct.
Okay, and was this in your handwriting as far as the dimensions and everything else?
Correct.
Okay, and as you can see, we've got the old portion of the house here, and this is the addition. All right. So here's a picture of the front, which the numbers depict the elevation. Here's a picture of the back. The numbers are talking about the elevation in the back. This is from the back looking towards Stephen Foster Avenue. And this is the portion that dealt with the windows. So on this, the plans that were submitted, Mr. Conway and Ms. Newman asked to replace all existing windows, remove the existing storm windows, and replace the trim. Obviously, this, for whatever reason, this wasn't caught by the director and presumably by the board. I'm not sure on that, but for whatever reason, when the plans were submitted, I presume that everything about the back and the elevations was caught, but this language right here wasn't caught. I don't know that the repair, the replace the damaged siding was caught either. But on January the 20th of 2020, Ms. Newman and Mr. Conway met with Ms. Jennings to go over the plans in the application. On January 21st is when they came before the board. And 4 of the members were here. Mr. Rick Hill wasn't a member at that time, but the meeting was kind of sidetracked. There was a lot of discussion that took place. The discussion was about an hour and 50 minutes. At the meeting, there was open discussion of the old and new sections of the house. And Mr. Conway received approval for his application by a 4-0 vote. Next thing is he received this letter sometime after January 28th, which said approval to install the proposed windows with the following conditions, and the conditions which were discussed at the meeting. There was no mention in this about what windows were approved. Mr. Conway believed that all the windows that he had proposed was approved. And is that correct, Bill?
Right. Yes.
Okay. Miss Newman, did you understand that approval had been granted for all the windows to replace the ones on the existing or the older portion of the house as well?
Yes, I did.
And Dave Cook, if Dave can hear me, did you also believe that approval had been given to replace the windows? All right, he's going to have to speak up a little bit, but I think that was a yes.
It was a yes.
Okay, all right. And Dave Cook is the builder that Mr. Conway has been working with. So after receiving the certificate of appropriateness from the city, Mr. Cook, on behalf of Mr. Conway, ordered the windows that had been approved or they believe had been approved. Acting in good faith, Mr. Conway followed the guidelines and procedures required by the city. He was in compliance with the plans that were approved by this board when the windows were replaced, or so he thought. He ordered new windows, and there's 10 windows that we're talking about here. There's 5 on the front. I think there's 4. I've got a picture showing the other side in a minute, but I think there's 4 on one side and 1 on the other. Each of these windows cost roughly $800. So he spent over $8,500 on the 10 windows, and then he spent roughly $2,000 on the installation of these windows. They're custom windows and they can't be returned. Is that correct, Dave, as far as the fact that they can't be returned? Okay. So then in April, Mr. Conway received this stop work order. April 23rd is when it was sent out, stating that he didn't have approval to replace the windows. So since April, the project with respect to the windows, and the project in large part is kind of been halted. And Mr. Conway's been trying to work this out quietly, but obviously no resolution has been reached at this point. So why was the request to replace rather than repair the windows? The request was made due to the fact that Mr. Cook, Ms. Newman both agreed that the windows were unrepairable. Also, this property is intended to be used as an Airbnb. It has B2 zoning, so there are some safety concerns that Mr. Conway and contractor had. So that was the reason. Well, let me show you. This is a picture of the window, some of the windows that have been removed. Ms. Newman, would you agree that in your professional opinion, these windows could not be repaired and need to be replaced?
Well, I thought they were in very bad shape. They're rotten, broken, inoperable. They're energy inefficient, and I have safety concerns about the glass in there. So, absolutely, they're in very poor shape, and I saw no need to try to salvage those.
Okay. And Mr. Cook, what's your opinion with respect to repair rather than replace?
Somewhere else, but if you put them all together, you couldn't make one drop, and then it's really, really expensive to do that stuff. So it didn't. I want to add one thing that you're probably not familiar with. When I got the windows in, I put two in on the Fifth Street side at the bottom, and we waited about 3 weeks, two to 3 weeks to install the rest of them. And wasn't anything said about the first two that we put in.
What was the reason for waiting?
I moved to another job.
Okay, so it wasn't like you were checking it out to see if you actually had approval or anything like that.
No, I was just concerned why nothing was said till all of it was put in, and I ordered the rest of the windows for the back.
Okay. So there was a length of time that went on to get all the windows in before you heard anything.
Right. Yeah. I got a work stop order after they was in. After they was all installed.
You hadn't heard anything before you got the stop work order?
No.
Okay.
They called me that day and said I would be getting a work stop order.
Okay.
So we had all the windows was already installed in the old portion.
Okay. And there's you held on to these windows. What was the reason for holding on to these windows as opposed to discarding them?
Well, a couple different reasons. The main reason we just didn't have time or enough to throw them in there at the time.
Okay.
So we left them inside, and I don't know if you remember in March it was a lot of rain and stuff. So we just took them out and set them in. I had one guy working on it, so it was taking them out wasn't real easy. So he got them and he just set them in. We actually hadn't cleaned up yet. Basically, what it is.
Okay. All right. This is another picture of some of the windows showing more rot. Here's another image of more rotten windows. So I would submit to you all that the character of this home has not been altered in any way by the replacement of these windows. On the left-hand side, you'll see the picture of the before picture, 5 windows on the front there. On the right is the current state of the house with the new windows that have been installed. The new windows have been placed in the same location as old windows. They haven't moved any. I would submit that the replacement has not negatively affected the appearance of the windows themselves or the structure itself. Here's from the Fifth Street side. And on the left here, you've got 4 windows that have been replaced. And as you can see, there are 6 windows running down the new addition. It's all the same type of windows that have been installed. It's the simulated divided that is commonly approved by this board. Here's a close-up of one of the windows. And this window is actually on the side facing the courthouse, the old courthouse. So this is the one window on that side that has been replaced. So this is a side-by-side of the before and the after. Again, I would submit that we haven't changed the character of this house in any way, shape, or form. I'd also submit there's some precedent for historic windows being replaced in historic homes. I'm not suggesting this board has allowed for these, but a number of older homes, historic homes in downtown Bardstown do have new windows. I know this board would be concerned about setting bad precedent. So what about that? I would say that this is not going to set any bad precedent for the following reasons. One, it's a unique circumstance because approval was requested from the homeowner. He was under the belief that he had approval to replace the windows. I understand what Roche is saying as far as the application itself that she put together and that was sent back to Mr. Conway didn't contain it, but he didn't catch that. He wasn't trying to slip anything past this board. He's not skilled in renovating old homes. I didn't know what NC stood for myself when I got involved in this case until I started looking at the guidelines. Obviously, it stands for new construction, but a layperson doesn't understand this. So this is a unique situation where he came before the board, requested approval, was under the belief that he had approval, and he went ahead and replaced the windows based upon that. It's not a situation where the homeowner did what they wanted to do without requesting permission, which I know has happened before, and those situations need to be dealt with differently than this. The replacements that have been made are the same style, same location, and the same size. Now, I know Roche has said they're not in kind, which is true. They're not exact replicas, but they're the same window that has been approved in the rest of the house, the same window that is commonly approved by this board. They're simulated divided. So and again, as you saw on the side facing Fifth Street, you've got 6 windows that are obviously going to be simulated divided, and we're now saying that we need to put in old windows that are not going to match those and are obviously going to look different from those new windows. Which is the next point. There's an addition that adjoins the old part of the house. We don't want mismatched windows side by side. The windows are badly damaged and deteriorated to the point that replacement is not feasible. Mr. Conway has talked to Charles Black. He got an estimate. It would take that we got 10 windows, and it would take approximately $3,000 for each of those windows. He also said that it would take 70 to 80 hours per each window. So if you're talking about 10 windows, 70 to 80 hours, you're talking about 20 weeks worth of time if he was working full time on this project to repair these windows. He also indicated that he is about 4 years out from being able to get to a project of this nature. We're not saying that all window replacements should be granted, but I'm saying that the board should allow these windows to stay given the circumstances. Also, I submit there's not going to be a flood of applicants asking to replace their windows because replacing windows is expensive. The standard of review. I submit that the typical standard of review shouldn't apply under these circumstances. We're not talking about a situation where he's asking for approval because he's already done that. He came before you. So I can't, well, and I think our standard for the windows is too stringent anyway, but that's not the point. The point is we got a situation where we've got 10 new windows in. He's spent a whole lot of money, a whole lot of time getting this done. So we shouldn't use the typical standard. So what I would ask you all to do is ask yourself, has the character of this house changed with the addition of these new windows? I'd also ask you to ask yourself, what harm will be done if we allow these windows on the left to remain versus stating that the old windows need to be repaired and put back in? Yeah, so what we're requesting that you all do is obviously allow the windows to remain. You know, I'm passionate about this because I live in the historic district. I've owned 4 homes in the historic district. I'm about to own a 5th home. My office is in the historic district. My parents live in the historic district. I'm not suggesting that everyone that asks for new windows get them. I'm asking you all to use your common sense, use your wisdom, decide that the windows that were contained in an application that was approved be allowed to stay. Look at the house, look at the replacement windows, realize that the character of the house remains intact, and allow them to remain. We as a community want to encourage, not discourage residents like Bill Conway to invest. If he has to remove these windows that he's paid for, discard them, and then spend, you know, the next few years and $30,000 or more repairing the broken windows, he's not going to have any interest in trying to rehabilitate any older homes. And that's what we want to do. We want to encourage people to rehab some of these older homes in the historic district in a way that looks good, in a way that doesn't change the character of these older homes. You know, obviously a mistake has been made here, and we can't correct that at this point. I mean, we are where we are, but you know, it wasn't Bill Conway's responsibility to point out every element of his application. He thought that his request to replace all the windows was granted, so that's why he did it. He didn't do it in order to, you know, try to get one by somebody or get one by you guys. It was an honest mistake. He didn't catch it. His architect didn't catch it. His contractor didn't catch it. So I think if there ever was a case to make an exception to your rules, this is it. You know, he filed an application. He came before you. Approval was granted. He acted upon that approval. He bought new windows. He's put the new windows in, and we're asking to allow them to stay. Bill, what have I left or missed that you want to add?
Well, first of all, I just want to let you know that I have a great appreciation for Rashay. You know, she not only works really, really hard for the HRB, but she also devotes a lot of time to many other historical projects in our community. And I have shared with several, including Audrey and the mayor, that she needs some help in her office. That she's actually got way too much on her plate, and I think it's really unmanageable for one person. The workload is way too much for her currently. And then second is that I think on this request, you said that our request was not to keep the windows installed without permission. Well, our request was to confirm the application was approved by HRB and the city council and given us a certificate of appropriation. You know, and I think just to sum it up, to Joe's point, when we saw the windows, they are kind of atrocious. And having an Airbnb, safety was our biggest concern. You know, we're trying to save a 200-year-old building, not a window. we're trying to enhance the gateway of historic Bardstown from the south and the west. It's the first intersection that you would come into from the south and the west to come into this historical district. We're trying to promote preservation, maybe with a little progress, and that wasn't the intention. That's just kind of the end result after what we did. And one thing that hadn't been mentioned is that David Hall at the January meeting, he talked a lot. I think that part of the conversation might have gotten a lot of people confused. But one thing he did say is that the windows were not original, that they had been changed. So, I mean, it's already, the windows have been changed out before. We tried to resolve this after the fact with 2 meetings that I had with Rashay and Audrey. You know, I didn't really want any negative publicity, more so for HRB than for myself. They've had several things that have kind of raised themselves in the paper and the media, and that's just not my style. I was trying to get whatever we could worked out. You know, Kathy and I lived and raised our family for 18 years in the historical district. My family that I'm involved with, we've owned commercial property my whole adult life in the historical district. Actually, I was born in the historical district probably before the HRB was even established back in 1955 on 4th Street. So I feel like I'm familiar with a little bit about the historical district. I've been on the Bardstown Historical Development Corporation for 17 years. I'm the chairman of it right now. It's a great little project that we're working with. So, you know, what I think the first thing when the stop work order came, and I was just absolutely dumbfounded, like, wow, what's going on? And I was out of town, and when I got back, I went to Rashay and said, look, well, you know, I don't know what happened, but we submitted an application. And on the application, it had a mark which says exterior structure alterations and demo, and then addition. And then we submitted all of our drawings with that application. And so I guess, you know, why was that not presented to the board versus what it was? I guess that's the question that really has been running in my mind for about a year. You know, if we submitted an application and gave all, you know, if you saw ideas, renderings and drawings, I mean, it was pretty comprehensive. It wasn't like this was done on the back of a matchbook. So that's what really kind of got me is, you know, how was it presented to the board differently than what we submitted? It just didn't make sense to me. But with all that said, I went to Rashay and I said, Rashay, you know, what can we do? You know, we've already ordered custom windows. They've come in, we've installed them. You know, it was 10 grand worth of in the old section, but that's when I got to looking at the repairing the old windows. You know, it was, I mean, the first words that were coming were $35,000 to $4,000 a piece, and it's going to take a long time. And we asked 3 or 4 different people to come look at them. Everybody was like, I don't know. But nobody wants to come before the HRB. Nobody wants to get a black mark by saying that they're irreparable. I asked Rashay if there was any kind of grants that were out there that maybe could help offset this expense. Was there any funding for historical situations such as this? Because it's quite a burden. And she shared that she was having a window workshop, and maybe we could work something out with that. But then COVID came in and that was canceled, and that wasn't available. I requested the HRB board members, you guys, to come have a site visit and look at the windows yourself and see if you think they're repairable. You know, I guess somebody with Eddie Black's talent can fix anything. And I've seen his work and it's tremendous, but it is very expensive and it's very timely. If you look at any project that he's done locally in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, when he gets on a project, he stays on it for an extended period of time, but he does good work. But that, I said, what about letting the board come down and look at the windows? Riche said, no way, absolutely not, because of COVID. You know, y'all could have gone in there one at a time or whatever, I don't know. And then in our conversations with Audrey, she said, well, what, you know, come back with some other ideas possibly that we could work with. So I said, well, I'd be more than happy to donate these windows to another worthy historic project, and even used the term Anatoc. I said, you know, I don't know if there's other projects that could use the windows or whatever, but, you know, if they're that meaningful, maybe we could, you know, relocate them in another spot or whatever. That kind of fell on deaf ears also. And then on the suggested from a noted Kentucky Heritage Council icon that I've been talking to, he suggested that maybe I sponsor a workshop of window restoration for the city to improve the understanding for the local contractors and developers for the need and the ability to restore windows. And then this would also be kind of an out for Ms. Jennings. They could send a clear message and a strong signal that this is not a precedent-setting situation for the window replacements in conflict with the city ordinance. So, you know, we've gone down the path. We really do not want to go to circuit court by any means, but you know, at some point in time, we have to have some closure on this to where we can move forward with it. So I don't know if Wadia or Dave has anything else they want to add to it, but this is going to be a really, really nice thing once it's completed. And it's going to be a great addition to the city of Bardstown. And I think it's something that the Historical Review Board can be proud of. So I don't know, Wadia?
Yeah. Well, I would say that I thought Joe made a very good point, saying that, you know, the character has not been compromised. And actually, I think the character has been improved. And the reason I say that is the storm windows that were originally on the new part, they're really ugly. And the storm windows on the outside, as it had, if you remember that picture, they come across flat, milky, and two-dimensional. And when you have these new windows in, I think it absolutely improves the character. I also like the idea of the side and the front matching. And I think that holds the project together. Character of this building comes off of its quirkiness, its sloped roof and the fireplace. And the chimney is leaning. And I know Dave and Bill said, well, we should straighten this out. And I said, absolutely not. This is what gives it character. So when you look at the overall project and the character that it has, these windows are not hurting it. And I understand the situation that we've got, but I think that the windows are a fine fit for it. And again, I think Joe made a good point that you don't want to discourage people from ever having to not want to renovate and restore old structures. And that's really the way I feel about that.
Wadia, just for the record, what is your educational and professional background?
I was trained in architecture. I got my degree in Arizona State. I've practiced in Arizona. I've practiced in California. My license in architecture in California. where I got my license to begin with. And I've been actually doing projects in Bardstown for over 25 years. And I have worked in the historical district. My main goal is to always blend in and to make a building look like it hasn't been touched of the period. And you know, I've always been very proud of the fact that a lot of the buildings that I do, you can't tell that they're additions. And again, I think that removing those storm windows off the front of the building was a huge help to the identity of this building.
Dave, do you have anything to add?
From a builder standpoint, when we had our first meeting, there was some questions about the gutter board and the ridge board. So we did discuss looking at these plans. And if you look at the plans, she indicates in detail replace windows with an arrow down to the front portion of the house. But the meeting never said, I think I mentioned this for Shay, I said, what I don't understand is why when we told it was detailed on the plan, why did it say you cannot do this? It was, so from a builder's point, we build by plans, but it says on the plan, unless we have the discussions of adjusting stuff like we did, says it on the plans, we went by the plans. So mistake on my part, or what is or Bill's, I feel like it's also a mistake on the board's part for not seeing that on that or dictating on that plan it wasn't allowed. To me, it's kind of like it was allowed when we walked out of the meeting. And after I installed the windows, it wasn't allowed. So from my point of view, that's what it is. It might not be 100%, what everybody else agrees with. But from my point, if it's on a plan, you do what the plan says. So, that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Okay, I guess open it up to any questions at this point.
Joe, I have a question. Can you go back to the slide that showed the elevation of the home with the handwritten notes?
Sure, Rick. Just tell me. Hold on one second.
If you want me, I've got them right here in front of me.
I can share my screen, Wadia.
Yeah.
Can you put me on?
Hold on.
I gotta do is talk.
Okay.
All right. You want to see the full one, Rick?
Go to the one that there was one that had a lot of notes, all the handwritten notes.
Okay.
That's the side elevation, that one.
Probably this one here?
Go down. Yeah, yes, that one. Can you zoom in on that a little more?
I don't know if I can with this slideshow.
Well, okay. So go back
Don't
to
you have a better picture?
Go back to the previous one just for a moment.
Sure.
So is that to scale? Is that an actual scale of the house?
That's warped.
Yeah, it's stretched out, but it was to scale. It's to scale in what we have.
Can
These
I,
images are in the COA.
And who produced that drawing?
I did, Wadia Newman. Can you put me on the screen? Can you go to my camera?
You're on.
Okay. Rick, here, I want to show you something. Here's the, I don't know if you can see this, but this is the first sheet. And this has all the elevations on it. Okay, it's that one. Now, of the drawing that you want to see is this one. And I've marked it up. and I've shown that of this drawing, there are 8 notes on the drawing. The whole sheet that has all 4 elevations only has a total of 11 directive notes. In other words, to match or to replace. There's 5 notes on this side elevation that call out to match. There are only 3 notes on the front that say replace or repair. And the windows are called out to be replaced. So in reviewing these documents, there's only 11 notes on the whole page. And I'm baffled really on how that was not picked up. There are very few notes. And you know, architectural drawings usually have a lot of notes, but I've learned over my years is to just put down the most important aspects so that they would not be missed.
Can I show something on my screen? Can I show something on my screen? I don't know if you can see this or not.
It's too hard to see, Beth. Hold it back a little more.
Okay, can you see? This is what was in our COA. Can you see
Right.
that? That is very clear. That is as clear as it is in our COA. The images that we were given were not legible. That right there is what it looks like. I can't even read the numbers for the dimensions, much less a note that says the windows are to be replaced. We never got paper copies. We never got a decent scan. So this is not legible.
So Beth, that's just what I'm trying to get to. And I have just one more question.
This note.
Wadia, are you?
Yeah.
Yes. Are you a design consultant or are you a registered architect on this project?
I'm a design consultant on this project. All my work in Bardstown is all my work in the 25 years that I've been doing architecture in Bardstown has been as a design consultant. And I usually take things up to schematic design and then put it in the hands of builders because they're very capable here in Kentucky versus in California.
I'm not trying to be a huge troublemaker. I'm just drawing a distinction here that you're not a registered architect in the state of Kentucky.
No.
Okay.
I am in California. That's where my license resides. So I'm very aware that I practice as a design consultant.
Rashay, were you given, I know that we've all seen the COA and the attachments many, many times. Were the drawings provided? I know that the one that I've seen the most is the one where the four pictures, I guess, drawings, for lack of a better term, were on the same page. Were they given in any other format where you had this page that we're seeing by itself in a format to share?
I was emailed those.
Okay.
Because the drawings that we have are very legible. The set of drawings, the 24 by 36, it's very legible. So what I'm hearing.
But I think what I'm trying to get at is I don't think that they were given to the city in a 24 by 30. Certainly in a 24 by 36 setting, you would be able to read that font. But I think what Beth is trying to say and it was given on an 8.5 by 11 size, and then they were looking at them on an iPad. So when you zoomed in, it's not so clear, I think, is what Beth is trying to say. The only version, I think, and Joe, you can correct me because I don't have the whole application pulled up right now. I'm trying to look at two things at the same time. There were several drawings there, but I'm not sure the one that you're showing us was there in the format that we're seeing it tonight. I think that's part of the issue.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I mean, but from a legal perspective, an honest mistake has been made here, and we can either hold the citizen responsible and make him, suffer a huge penalty, or we can rectify it tonight by saying, okay, we haven't changed the character, we've added to the character, the house is looking better. There's no harm in granting the application. And I shouldn't say granting the application. No harm in letting the windows remain.
Does anyone else have questions? I know Mr. Hill had asked a question. Does anyone else on the board have questions?
I have a lot of comments if people want to hear them. I took a lot of notes. So one, no offense to Wadia, I also have an architecture degree, but I am not a Windows expert. I don't think an architecture degree makes you a Windows expert or even a construction person. Mr. Black is not here to discuss what state the windows are in. The second thing is you talked a lot about the cost. The board can't take the cost into account. That is one of the first things we learn, and it's upsetting to us too.
Well,
but we can't take that into account.
If I may interject, I've looked through the guidelines. I don't see that anywhere. I looked at the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines, and they take into account economic feasibility with windows. The guidelines on page 33 of the Secretary of the Interior standards say if using the same kind of material is not technically or economically feasible.
Got it. I'm going to cut you in there, Joe, because basically what is coming down from Frankfurt and what I have been told with my degree is that whenever we are taking alterations to historic structures into consideration, not demolition, not economic hardship, whenever we're taking those kind of things into consideration, the cost is not what HRB can consider, and that came directly from the CLG coordinator from Frankfurt to me. So the cost of what is occurring is not what my board is to take into consideration. What they are to take into consideration is what is most appropriate for that historic structure. It doesn't matter if they love the design. It doesn't matter if they think it would be pretty. What matters is what is most historically appropriate for that building. You are supposed to do what is in keeping with keeping it historic. And so, unfortunately, cost is not something they can take into consideration.
I mean, the whole principle behind these guidelines is to improve, conserve, maintain, improve. And if cost is not a consideration, then how are we going to improve things? We're going to be stuck, with unless you want to have only the rich come into Bardstown and fix up these buildings, because you're phasing out the people with little means being able to improve their places if cost is not a consideration.
It's worked so far since the 1970s.
Well, and Joe, the only thing I would add is that Article 15 specifically does address economic hardship with respect to demolitions. And it is permitted to be considered in those situations, but it does not address economic hardship being considered with respect to alterations. So anyway, Beth, if you want to.
And I'm not talking about economic hardship. I'm talking about, you do a cost benefit analysis in everything you do in life, right? What I eat for breakfast, I'm deciding, is this gonna make me healthier or is it going to taste better? So when you're looking at a project, you have to take into consideration what's it going to look like if we improve it, versus what's it going to cost. Whether you're supposed to or not, it's done every day. I mean, you all have done it tonight with things. You've done cost benefit analysis on trash cans, on roofs, on main, So I'm not talking. Yeah. Well.
Hey, Joe and Rashay. I can appreciate windows more now than when I started this project, because I started researching it, and National Park Service looks like they're kind of the guys that make the rules, and there's plenty of rules to be had. But in my reading, under documentation of deterioration and the feasibility of repair or the quality of the repaired window, the cost of the repair and other factors may be considered. Repair.
Right. But we have local guidelines that are adopted.
I would submit that the national people that deal with this on a national scale are the ones we should follow, and our own guidelines say that that's what they're modeled after. But we're going against that.
Well, that's kind of where Rashay told me that they got all their information. So that's kind of where I went to look.
So our standards have been approved by the federal government, and they have been approved by the Kentucky Heritage Council. So all of our guidelines had to be approved for us to be a CLJ coordinator. So they are in keeping with the federal standards. So they had to be approved by Frankfurt, or we wouldn't be allowed to have them as a certified local government.
I'm not saying that they weren't approved. I'm saying that the federal guidelines take in cost feasibility into consideration, and we're not.
It seems like that
I have some
for every time
objections
that
that
there is.
I have some
I'm
serious
not,
objections that have nothing to do with cost or feasibility.
Okay.
The fact that the cookie cutter windows that are in the old part of the home at this time do not fit. They were not measured accurately. You can see exposed 2x4s where siding is missing, where the time and attention to detail was not taken. When you are in the historic district, as Bill and Joe, you both know because you have owned numerous properties in the historic district, and you've also worked on those, lived in those, you know that additions are supposed to look different than the original so that the original maintains its character and distinctive attributes. You do not want the windows on the original home to be a cookie cutter stamp of the windows on the addition. I think, Joe, that the particular window you picked on the courthouse side shows exactly what's wrong with those windows, with the 2x4 so obviously exposed where it was incorrectly sized. If you go to the picture of the front of the home, the two windows to either side of the front door are incorrectly sized.
Well, Pat, I hate to cut you off, but I think Dave might be able to speak to this because I don't think what you're seeing has been completed because of the stop work order and not knowing where this project is going.
Yes, but it wasn't measured. If that would not be there, I know I've worked on windows in my home. Those 2x4s would not be exposed if the correct size window had been put in that
Hey,
opening.
Pat.
Yes.
Dave's trying to talk. He's talking on my cell phone through this.
Yeah, I can barely hear. Yeah.
Put it up next to the microphone on the computer there, Bill. It's up next to the monitor.
Yes.
Those windows that are incomplete, we got the work stop orders, so we did not finish those windows on the exterior, the trim around them and so forth. We did not. They're incomplete.
So the trim's going to be put in to blend them in with the siding, right?
Right. So that's the reason she's seeing what she's seeing. They're incomplete as of right now on there. And as far as the size of the window, if you go inside and measure the window, the old windows had a seal. If you notice, we put a seal, you have to measure those windows from the outside if you want them to be the same size as the ones that was previously in there from the outside. Because the outside is what we're talking about. We're not talking about the inside. But what she's talking about, those windows and the trim around them are incomplete right now because of the work stop order.
Well, one other thing, Pat, is I don't know if you remember at the January meeting, but we actually talked about having to raise the old section 2 inches up just to get it to the floor level. I don't know if you remember that discussion of that, but we talked about the old section and the new section.
You mean of the foundation?
No, the windows.
But I think what Pat is trying to state is that the windows that are in place now do not match the original size of the windows that were removed. Which they don't.
If you tape, they actually will match up on the outside.
On the outside, but not the original proportions that were there. They don't match.
It looks like it's been filled in.
Of course, you know, if we measured each window separate, you'd have 10 different size windows because these things are a couple hundred years old and they wasn't built exactly the same size. The old windows was not. They're different. They're an inch different width and height. And again, the floor, these windows across the front, if you remember when you went in, those windows was below the floor a couple inches.
I remember that discussion. I remember that they had to be lifted because, and we talked about that and we said that was fine for them to be lifted, but we certainly didn't say that it was fine to replace them. I remember that discussion, Mr. Conway. You're right about that portion. They had to be moved up because there was some crazy settling that had happened.
Well, and I must have missed out on something here. Our COA only mentions the new addition. So I'm confused as to why we're even talking. I mean, I know that's the direction we're going, but we only approved the new addition.
That's
No,
correct.
but
And Beth,
there were three people, Bill Conway, Wadeen Newman, and Dave Cook, who all believe that the whole plan with respect to the windows, replacing the siding on the old part, was approved. Nope.
Now,
They didn't.
that's inaccurate because.
and also Beth,
I mean,
the
that's your opinion, though.
No, the audio recording reflects
No.
that. No, the audio recording reflects that completely. And not only that, Beth, it was discussed about the windows. It wasn't discussed about the original windows being removed at all. It was mentioned that they were below the floor, but nothing was talked about them actually moving, and nothing was discussed about it.
Okay. I just remember we did
Yeah.
talk about them being strange, and that's all I remember. I don't know what conclusion we came to. I'm sorry if I misspoke.
That's okay. That's okay. We did not, there was nothing discussed about that.
But your discussion about the siding on the addition is hardy plank. And the siding on the original building is wood, and every piece of siding that was replaced on the original building was replaced with wood.
That's
Not
because
with hardy plank.
Because that's what the plans called for.
We did not discuss it. It is in kind. We don't have to talk about replacing wood siding with wood siding.
Okay. The plans had a mention
That we could not read. That we could not read one single word on.
Well,
And
did
they
you
were
all
never discussed. They
did you
were
all discuss the
never
dimensions?
discussed.
We discussed
We
the
discussed
dimensions
the
of the
dimensions.
siding so that the siding would match the original wood siding.
Okay.
That's
Well,
correct.
how did you get the dimensions?
Dave
We
Cook
said they had
provided
to
them.
we don't have to, we
See-
don't go to houses and measure.
So
No,
Dave
the
Cook,
plans contain them. I mean, these
Joe.
were if there was a problem with seeing this, that should have been brought up by the board. We can't make this out. We need the plans.
it was mentioned. And so what happened was verbally, everything was discussed, including Dave Cook giving the dimensions of the original siding and the new siding, because we asked him, we said, we can't read it, Dave. And he said, okay. He said, here's the original siding measurements and here's the new siding measurements. It was noted that we couldn't read it. And so what we asked for is all of the details to be told to us so that we could vote on them that night and discuss. The original structure was not mentioned ever in both meetings,
Except for the elevation.
except for the paint, to paint the original structure to match the new addition.
Was the
That was
elevation
the-
discussed? Raising it up?
No, it was not. It was told that the windows were below the floor, and it was discussed that it was weird, but it was never talked about anything else about that. There's nothing else.
Did you all give approval for raising the elevation?
No,
Didn't. No, I
Okay,
was mistaken, sir. This was a year ago.
no.
Well, I mean, obviously it's we're at loggerheads and we're trying to come up with a resolution, and it would to me, as a citizen, as a resident of the historic district, to now say you have to take out these windows that were mistakenly put in and put back in these broken, deteriorated windows is just unjust.
Also, in my personal opinion of actually working and fixing historic windows, those windows can be repaired. So that's my expert opinion on that. So I understand that there's parts of it that are deteriorated, but they can be repaired.
Could I ask one of y'all which one was talking about the siding in the front? Could you explain? I didn't hear all that.
So basically, when we ask about the dimensions, we wanted to make sure that the original siding and the siding on the new addition would match. And you stated that you gave us the dimensions because we said we couldn't read it. And so you stated, at some point, we had all said that we couldn't read the numbers. We couldn't see the numbers. And so you stated, you started giving us the measurements. You had paperwork there with you, Dave, which you pulled out and you told us the size of the addition, the siding would match the original, and you gave those specifications, including the thickness.
I gave you a sample of the addition siding.
Yeah, no, the
Yeah, but
siding is
it's not
fine,
that.
sir. It's not, the siding is
Yeah.
fine. Not an
Yeah,
issue.
that's not an issue, no.
So the siding on the old part is where I took it, the demolition room I took off. I used some of that on the front part. On the
And that's great.
And we discussed that and we, yeah.
So, and there's some new siding, what I'm calling new, 30 years or younger siding all over that thing that somebody else has put on. So when you look at that, a lot of that siding on the old part is previously put on that we didn't put on. I can show you where that's at if you need to know.
We're good on the siding, Dave.
Yeah, that's,
Okay, thank you.
So,
I
Rashay,
mean,
can I ask
Audrey,
you
is there
one
anything
question?
else? Yes.
So I think we've gone way out and come like back in and everything else, but so when we submitted the application and had everything marked of the exterior structure alterations, the demo, and the addition, and submitted the drawings, and I guess my question is, why did you take those drawings and the application and present them to the board differently than the way we asked to be presented?
I don't recall presenting them any differently than what we discussed, Bill. So I remember receiving the information, going over a lot of details that night. I remember discussing the fact that it would be extremely difficult to get any historic windows replaced. And I remember going over that with you, that we don't normally replace any historic windows and that the circumstances for that would be very difficult. But I don't remember, I did not present anything to my belief that was different from what you all told me to. And that's part of the reason why I resend the applications out, just like, if there's something wrong on the application, please tell me, because I'll change it before the meeting. That's what, I'm not saying anyone's perfect, and I definitely am not. But if there's something wrong there, you have to tell me. So that's kind of the issue that we've run into now, so I wasn't informed that anything was wrong. The board didn't know that anything else was, they didn't understand that anything else was being presented. I didn't understand that anything else was being presented. But what we did discuss and what we did approve was only for the addition. And so the original building was not discussed.
And that's fine and well, but tonight we're here about letting the windows remain, as opposed to what happened back in January. I mean, it was, like I said before, it was an honest mistake. So the question is, what's the solution, right? Do we make Bill Conway remove $10,000 worth of windows and fix up, spend the next 2-3 years fixing up these windows, and then putting them in, or maybe he scraps the whole project. I don't know. Says, I can't, it's not worth it to me at that point. Or do we say the character of this house has not been modified by the addition of these windows that are, all over town, and we're going to let them be.
Rashay, go ahead, Beth.
I wanted to address the images of the new windows. Most of those windows were not new.
They're not historic. I'm not saying that they're in the last 5-10 years, but they have been replaced within the past 25 years. Somebody getting feedback?
No, those windows that you were talking about that you replaced, those older ones.
No. He's talking about the pictures. Go ahead.
Okay,
Beth.
got it.
Yeah.
I certainly saw windows that didn't have approval. I saw the courthouse, which we don't have jurisdiction over.
I understand that.
The Talbot Tavern caught on fire. They got,
Not the Talbot Inn.
Yeah.
Not the Talbot Inn.
Well, honestly, I think we made a bad choice by approving those windows, and we're not going to do it a second time.
Well, I would submit to you that, like I said, this is a unique situation, right? It's not a situation where he's coming saying, can I get approval for this? It's a situation where he thought he got approval. He took steps. You know, I would hate it if I was in his shoes and this is what I'm being told. You know, I don't think that's how we want to treat the pillars of our community, the people that are investing good money to fix up downtown places. You know, yeah, if he had come and said, can I replace these windows? And you said no, and then he just changed them, it'd be a whole different ball game, and you all would be well within your right to say, you got to take them out. But that's not what happened. It was an honest misunderstanding where he thought he was asking for them. He thought, you know, he got an approval letter that said your request for the windows has been replaced. He acted on it, and then, you know, he got a stop work order, and that's where we're at.
Right. So just to kind of sum up, Beth, and I don't want to interrupt, but obviously we're all going to just have to agree to disagree about who thinks what was approved, right? I think it's clear
Right.
from some of the discussion.
And that's what's going to happen in court. If
Sure, understood.
Yeah,
That's why the process is there.
Right.
I think at the end of the day, what we're looking at today is whether or not the board wants to approve the windows that are currently installed. Is that a fair way to put it, Joe? As far as you're concerned, to approve the windows that are
Yes.
currently installed. You know, obviously I know that Roche and some of the members of the board have certainly taken the position they were installed without approval, and I would submit to you plenty in the record that would agree with that. Mr. Conway disagrees with that. So, you know, we could be here a whole lot longer, I think, and I'm sure that we could all argue on this point for a significant amount of time. The question is whether or not the board wants to approve the windows that are installed in the old portion of the house currently. And so I think that's the issue before you. So I don't know if anyone else has any further discussion specifically on that point. As far as I know Roche has talked about this. I know that Pat has had an opinion. I know Beth has talked some, but if anyone has more discussion they want to add on that particular point, I would invite you to do so.
So I'll talk a little bit about my opinion. So definitely an unfortunate situation that we are in. I do think that there was probably some miscommunication in the beginning with the application. It's unfortunate that the plans were not legible. We probably should have been provided with larger plans for review. Roche, correct me if I'm wrong, was this an in-person meeting or was this an online meeting?
this was in person.
Okay, so even more of a reason, in my opinion, that we should have been given a larger set of plans. Because at that time, that was pretty common that we would receive full-size sets of plans for an addition type project. So, and how that, the reason we didn't receive those, you know, I don't know why, but so that is what it is. We definitely would have had a separate certificate of application for replacing the historic windows on the original portion of the project. We would have discussed it in detail. We would have probably entertained the thought of replacement of the windows based on the new use group of this building with the Airbnb and the safety considerations, because we've done that in the past. We would have most definitely wanted the strong opinion of a person like Mr. Black. And I really wish he had been here tonight to speak on what his inspection of those windows were. I know that you said that he said they were deteriorated past repair, or that he would have to spend 20 plus hours per window or whatever that was to repair each one. But no, and I really wouldn't mind to see the existing windows, you know, the original ones. And I know that was brought up before, and quite frankly, I think we should have had an opportunity to look at them. If we would have approved replacement of the windows, they would have been custom built, true divided light to match exactly the existing windows. I'm sorry, but I cannot agree that the character has been maintained with the historic home. I'm actually about to buy a home in the historic district, and all the windows have been replaced, and I find it unfortunate. It lacks a lot of character on the inside and outside. I'm going to kind of talk in circles here, so bear with me. If in any way we were to approve leaving the new simulated divided light windows installed, we would receive significant backlash from the community. I can't count how many people have asked to replace their windows and we've told them no. I mean, it's almost every meeting. And I've only been on the board 2 years. One specific case I can remember approving, and it was for Cafe Primo. And those, we had, those windows were severely damaged, and quite frankly, it was because they didn't take care of them. But they were willing to spend a substantial amount of money to have those custom built to match exactly the same as they were. And this carried on 3 or 4 months in meetings, having Demir come back over and over. So just to give you some background, some history of people who have applied to have their windows replaced, and we haven't granted that. I too live in the historic district and own 3 homes. I would love to replace some of my windows with some that were custom to match, but can't afford it. Could probably afford the newer style aluminum clad windows, but I'm not allowed to do that. I have in turn replaced all my window sills that have been rotten, and had all the windows reglazed, all the muttons. So from my standpoint, like I said, it's incredibly unfortunate that this situation has come about, but I do think there is some fault on the board's side, either it be with Riche or with the board. And we should have demanded that we had plans that were legible for this particular project, any project. So with that being said, it would be difficult for me to say that it would be difficult for me to not side with Mr. Conway, because, in turn, it's our fault. It's still our fault that we did not request more information. But I will say, I do think that maybe not that this was trying to be a one over on us, but I do believe that deep down that it was known that those windows should not have been replaced. Again, with the situation that we're under, and I think the mistakes that have been made, I would be hard pressed to not take the side of leaving the windows as they are currently in place.
Summer, I would like to note that I am 100% sure that I said about the windows, these will be approved in the addition. I'm 100% sure.
I believe you. I believe you. I do. But I also, a part of me believes that there's a possibility that Mr. Conway and others involved in the project, for some reason, thought that maybe they were approved to replace their windows. But there's also a part of me too that thinks that maybe not. Maybe this was just maybe they didn't think that and went forward with it anyways. But I can't assume, right? So I know what I know, and that is that we should have asked for more information up front. Not just Riche, but the board. When we saw those plans, we should have threw them out and said, no, come back next month with plans that are legible. We require more of others. So we should have done the same thing in this case. I know my opinion is probably unlike everyone else on the board, but that is where I stand.
Thank you, Summer. Does anyone, Beth, I don't want to usurp you here, but I'm trying to move you all along.
No,
does anybody else?
I think I have inserted most of my information. I mean,
Okay.
I have other things, but they're not that important.
Okay. Does anyone else sort of want to speak to the particular issue we sort of honed in on, which is whether or not the board wants to allow Mr. Conway to keep the windows that are installed, or has opinions about that? I know we've heard from Pat, we've heard from Beth, we've heard from Summer. I don't know if the 2 gentlemen want to share anything, but if not, I think you could entertain a motion one way or the other.
Just a real quick question. illustrations and diagrams and schemes aside, I mean, was there anything in writing in that COA that discussed original windows?
No.
So the problem, I mean, I can show you what Bill submitted, and then obviously Rashay takes it and puts her application together, and then I guess it goes back to Bill, which I've said he didn't catch, that she was talking about the addition and not the whole thing. But the application that he submitted was, bare bones, demolition, addition, and what's the other word I'm looking for?
Addition, renovation.
Renovation,
Exterior
yeah.
structure of the alter the original structure.
Yeah.
And that is a check mark on property type that's listed. So on the property type, exterior structure alteration, and then addition was listed.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you want to see it, I'm happy to share my screen here.
Joe, while you're doing that, I'd like to just make one comment for Summer. You were saying that you didn't know whether there was any deceit maybe on our part or not. When I purchased the house, it was the whole place is in pretty bad shape. In fact, I think Dave spent probably 2 months just shoring up the foundation to where we could actually do something with the project. I didn't know Dave really from his work standpoint. I went to Logan Spalding after I saw the basement, saw what we had before me, and went through the house. And I said, do you have any recommendations on structural engineers or something that could help me out with this? And he said, you need to get a hold of Dave Cook. He's the only one I know that can do this type of work. And then getting a hold of Wadia, I'd seen her work all over town and was very impressed with it. And when she came and saw the house, she talked about the nogging and the structure and the age. And I think she was more excited about the house than I was. And so, we kind of, the three of us met probably every 2 weeks and finally came up with the renderings that you see, or the drawings that you see. And when it came to looking at the windows, I'm a novice. I'm not a contractor. They just looked like they were in shambles as far as I was concerned. And it seemed like that was the same opinion of the other two. We never even thought twice. Now, after the fact, Eddie Black came over the house, I think a total of 4 different times before he would actually commit to anything. And, at the end, he said, yeah, I can fix them. He said, I can fix anything with a window. And, I don't know. My question to Audrey and Rashay was, where does the axis cross when you take an old window, put material to it, and it becomes not an old window, but a new window? I mean, Rashay said, well, you can replace, the panes. That was a big concern from a safety standpoint. If you take Freddie No's wife, Sandy, when she put her hand through the door to open it up and the pane broke, and she's had about 5 or 6 operations with Kooks and Klein because of the thinness of the panes. Well, Rashay just says, well, you can just replace all the panes. Well, you can, and the muttons were, I think the only thing left in the muttons is the putty that's hardened. Well, you can replace the muttons, and so you can replace pretty much the whole thing. But that's, and I believe, Dave, you might correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you actually talked to Rashay about the window, what type of windows. I think it could have been aluminum or wood, and we chose wood because it seemed more natural for that project. There was no deceit whatsoever on our part. And then when the COA was approved, it said addition and new windows. Wow. dumb me, when it said addition, I thought it was the addition. And when it said new windows, I thought it meant new windows. I thought it meant new windows for the whole place. Dave Cook, being a contractor, he would not have ordered those windows if he even halfway thought that there was going to be a concern with it after we got the COA from the city. So, you know, I understand that you all were presented something that was given to you, and it was something totally different than what we sent to be presented to you. That's where the situation is.
And Joe, I think you've got the application there. You talk. It looks like Bill has like 2 handwritten pages, and then the drawings were attached with this. I don't know if it's an invoice or a quote for the windows that shows what the options were.
Yeah, I don't. Yes, right. That's exactly right. So and you can
And so
see.
Sure. So to that point, obviously, you know, Roche takes the information given to her, which, you know, is these drawings and her discussions, and then distills those down. And just for anyone who's newer to the board, you know, we break them out into multiple COAs, right? So that's why there's one COA for windows versus roof versus siding, you know, paint colors and lighting and all that, just because previous city attorneys before me had found that that was helpful when there were modifications, so that you weren't trying to add 10 different conditions relating to 10 different things within the house. So that's why there are multiple COAs that come out of that. So anyway, I don't know if we were kind of, you know, talking through this discussion. So I don't know if anyone, that was Dr. Blackman's question, I guess, right? Was did the original application list anything? So Josh, I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but I think that Mr. Conway would tell you there was very small text on the drawing that said replace all windows, and that's where in the application that would have appeared. And Roche would tell you that in the portion that she prepared based on her discussions and her review of the materials, it says, you know, the applicant wishes to install new windows on the addition, and it discusses the windows for the addition and sets forth the new construction standards as opposed to the standards that would have applied if you were doing an in-kind replacement of those windows, which would be considered differently. I think, is that a fair assessment, Roche, in a nutshell? Okay.
Essentially, yeah. So it stated that on the application summary, it said the applicant wishes to install new windows on the addition. The windows will be simulated divided windows that are double hung. The applicant is proposing wood windows or aluminum clad windows for the new addition. And then under review findings, it also states the new windows proposed for the new addition. And then, of course, the construction, it was approved under new construction standards in section 5. Which regular windows would have to be approved in window standards section 4.
So just to review the process, the applicant gives you the information. You basically type it up, write it up, present it back to the applicant. Applicant is therefore supposed to review.
Yep.
And basically sign off and approve of the wording and the way it's written.
Yeah, so you've got it. So whenever I post it for you guys, same day, it goes out to the applicants. I usually send it all out to the applicants first, and then I email you guys and I was like, hey, it's all posted to SharePoint. And so I send them the application, the agenda, the meeting letter, and in that meeting letter, it states if there's anything incorrect, if I've missed anything, or if something is not correct, please let me know so I can change it before the meeting. And that was never done in 2 months.
Gotcha.
December of 2019 and January of 2020.
Let me ask you all this. I know I've mentioned this before in the past, and I hate to say that, you know, we should put this off on someone else, but I think everyone could agree that, you know, we all volunteer to be on this board, and it is definitely a very thankless job. We don't have a lot of people who are fans of us in the historic district and in our community, but we have a passion to preserve the history of our town, which is why we are on this board. So with that being said, you know, in previous applications where folks have moved forward with installation of things without approval, and I know this is a little different situation, but I had always suggested that, you know, this needs to go to city council. You know, they have a paid position. They are qualified to make the call here. You know, they approve or disapprove all of our approvals every month. So they may not be as in tune with the guidelines as we are, but they're on the internet. They could look them up. I know it's a little more to it than just that on this particular situation. But I mean, is there a possibility, Rashay? I mean, if we deny
So-
this COA, can
So Summer, let me,
can they have
can
the
I
same
speak to that?
discussion with the city
Can I-
council and get their opinion?
So Summer, can I speak to that process for you, I
Sure.
guess?
Yeah.
So yes, so you're correct. So technically this board makes recommendations, right? And the official approval comes after city council review of the applications. And so as a general rule, I think if this board approves something, I don't know, I don't want to say I don't know of it, but I'm not aware of any circumstance where the city council did not then approve it also. But there are, as you're pointing out, there are times when something is denied, there's an appeal to city council and something may be approved, or there's some solution that's presented before the city council where they make an approval with conditions and things like that. So yes, so to that extent, if my baby's crying, I'm sorry. So to the extent that if the application is denied here, the request to keep the windows that are installed, then yes, Mr. Conway does have the right and the ability to appeal that, and then the city council could ask questions similar to what you're asking or different questions, and they could, request different information. They could present information there, and they take it up in sort of a de novo way where they're reviewing it and deciding if they're going to deny that as well, or if they're going to approve it with some sort of different conditions. So is that right, Rashad? Do you agree with that?
I do.
Okay.
I agree with that.
I do have one question that we haven't addressed. Is there a possibility of letting him keep the windows while the other windows are repaired? And as they are repaired, they are placed back into the building?
I think that would probably need to be addressed to Dave Cook, who would talk about what's going to, I mean, to put these new windows in and finish them off.
My question is I'm obviously not going to vote for these windows. You can tell by how I've acted. But I would say that those windows could stay while the other ones are repaired, and as they are repaired, they are put back in. And I didn't know if that was even something we could say was okay.
I mean, I think you all could make an approval with conditions, such as, for example, with that, whether or not Mr. Conway would want to appeal that beyond tonight, I guess is a different question, right? But I certainly think if you wanted to make, or someone wanted to make a motion that the windows, I'm trying to think how you'd word it, the windows that, as installed can remain with the condition that the historic windows are to be repaired, and the current windows are to be replaced with the historic windows over an X number of months or years period or something like that. Because obviously, from what I understood from Mr. Ballard, and certainly understanding having grown up in a house with 240-year-old windows at this point, that it is time consuming to do that work, right? And certainly Mr. Black is not the only one who does it, but I know that Demir, for example, had difficulty finding someone. I think you ended up going to Frankfurt and finding someone who could do his work. There's not an abundance of people who are qualified to do that work. So, that could be the motion with a condition, I suppose, something along those lines.
Because that's the way I could even consider letting those windows stay.
I don't know though. I have trepidations from other issues that have happened in the past, where they've approved something, but it wasn't really meant to be kept. And then that went to court because that wasn't clearly understood. So that's happened in the past with HRB, from records that I've been able to research. It hasn't happened since I've been here. Well, yeah, actually it's happened once, where that then itself became an issue because we approved it, but we didn't approve it. And so it kind of really makes me very nervous.
Yeah, well, I know we've done temporary approvals for very temporary things, but Windows seems, I was just putting it out there to try and address the issue and try and come to some sort of compromise.
Well,
because
to give you an idea, that's a similar, obviously it's a different fact pattern, but Judge C, right before he retired, did enter a finding in one of our litigated cases that, the home had to be restored with the original windows and appropriate wood siding, and gave the applicant a 1 year period, or the defendant, I guess it is, a 1 year period to do that work. And then it'll come back to the court in a year, and whoever we'll review it at that
Right.
time and, make a determination. So there is some precedent for that. Obviously it can be tricky, I guess, is that, it can be
And
difficult to
I
enforce
I
at that
didn't know
point.
if we were the appropriate people to make that step, even maybe city council or somebody
That
else.
idea can be
But
brought to city council. That can be brought as a stipulation that, it was discussed. It can be brought to city council, and I think they would be the one to give the final determination on that.
okay. I just know he wants to use this as like an Airbnb, and without windows at all, he certainly can't do that. So I was just trying.
You can't finish the inside until the windows are complete.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Drywall, you can't do anything. The whole rest of the house has been drywalled and everything's waiting on this situation here.
So
Yeah, so I
something we hadn't talked about was the safety factor of the glass. Bill brought it up earlier. If they would have came, I'm not to speculate, but if they were to came to us and say, hey, it's a safety issue and they're
real quick, you're a safety issue with the glass, correct? So Logan Spalding weighed in on that. That's included in the application with this month's meeting.
right.
The only requirement that he is stating is that the glass should be tempered on the windows that have bedrooms, which is not all of the windows whatsoever. So none of the windows on the first floor, on the side, etc. There's a couple on the first floor. But even with that, also Logan told me that there is and I've researched this, he made he applied to the windows to make them tempered, so you don't even have to replace the original glass.
You were kind of cutting out at the end. What were you saying about, say that again?
So sorry, there is a solvent that can be used on windows, historic windows, that would make them tempered glass to meet the safety requirement, so that the original glass doesn't even have to be replaced within the bedroom areas.
Okay.
And Logan presented that information to me.
Okay.
Yep.
So does someone have a motion either to approve or to deny the application?
As the chairperson, I can't make the motion, right?
I think Miss Hagan's trying to speak, but her microphone's off.
No, I'm just asking if anyone has a motion to.
Yeah, I think Pat was trying to talk and her microphone.
Sorry, Miss Hagan. I thought you were talking to
No,
me.
no.
Sorry.
Thanks, Joe. I make a motion to recommend the denial of COA 19-255 amended based on the finding that the window replacement is not consistent with the window standards set forth in Section 4 of the Bardstown Historic Design and Review Manual. Specifically, that is for new construction and all the things we've spoken about, that the windows need to focus on the historic windows that are there at the time of the purchase. Let's see. Was there anything else I needed to add to that? Rashay?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Can I second? I don't know if I can do anything.
You can second.
Okay, second.
So then we
Vote.
bet.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
And Rick
And
and Summer.
Do you oppose?
No, I'll go along with it with the understanding that it's going to go to city council, where I think this decision should be made. And it's very unfortunate that we're at this position. So
Okay.
I think it goes to city council. So
Okay.
I agree
And
with-
Summer, what was your vote?
I was opposed.
Okay,
Okay.
we didn't hear it.
Okay. Got it.
Audrey, are you still with us?
I am. I'm holding the baby though. So.
Understood. I would just ask if this could be put on for next Tuesday's
Joe,
meeting.
I was actually about to text you to ask you to see if I could talk to the mayor about putting it on a special meeting sometime before court, obviously next, but because I suspect it'll take a longer amount of time than typical. So I was gonna. So we'll talk about it tomorrow.
That'd be fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Thank you all. I know it's been a long night. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Sorry, it didn't.
And it is a thankless job. I get that. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, Beth. I guess you could entertain a motion to adjourn, which I suspect.
Okay, I think we have some new business to address.
Oh, you do. Well, I'm going to leave you. I'm very sorry. I'm going to leave you all then. I'm going to go put this baby back to bed, hopefully.
Okay,
All
so
right.
go ahead, Beth. Go right ahead.
We have new business to address, fire hydrant colors.
Yeah,
Only
so
should be red.
well, so Chief Mattingly wanted me to talk to you guys because they're getting ready to do a bid to repaint them all. And he wanted your input on what you wanted in the historic district, which was really sweet. God bless him. He's a great guy. And so I had done some more research on some historic fire hydrants and what we kind of have. And this is just to show you guys like what's in, of course, there's I know you can't really see it. Hold on. You can't really see it, but there's, look, Johnny, you're behind the scenes making this work. So the brightness and the contrast is kind of, okay, there we go.
That's good.
There you go. Yeah, so you can kind of see there's some emblems and other things. There's of course some really neat ones that are just designed. We don't have those, but colors wise, there's a lot of choices. And so what I was asking, and then look at that one. Yeah, I know, right? That's kind of cool. So there's a lot of different happy, and then there's people that where the community's done art on them. I know you can't really see it. But there's art on some of them. One was turned into a museum plaque. I can't help it. I had to show you that. And one's a Dalmatian, I'm just saying there's some really cute ideas out there that make my heart happy. This is city property. It isn't really our decision, but of course they're very kind and they want to know our input. One of the recommendations, it's a hummingbird in the sky. It's nice. All right. I'm not saying one way or the other. There is one thing though, for instance, the color of the Bardstown logo from the city has turned into a deeper red that's not necessarily a fire engine red. And that's one thing I definitely was going to recommend to the chief is that even if it was just the darker red that kind of matched, the city logo and all the city signage, I thought that would be something that would be nice. But if you all would, by Friday, if you have any suggestions or if you have any comments or any design ideas, would you please send that to me by Friday so I can get that to the chief? And so we can kind of get them our ideas and recommendations, please.
I'm definitely on board with the deep red. That's actually exactly what I was thinking. Because it seems like that would be a color that they used, when they first came out. I don't know. But I'm down for that.
Yeah.
Not neon, not that neon yellow color. 100%.
No.
Okay, got it. No neon. Okay, so no neon yellow. Good. Okay, excellent.
No.
But so the deep red is a good consensus. So I'll pass that. But if anyone has any other ideas, please send them to me by Friday. And that way I can give them to the chief and he can kind of have that information.
Yeah.
The only appropriate color for a fire hydrant is red. And I don't care what color red it is.
I agree. I don't want to see a blue one or a white one or a navy. It's got to be red. And I guess there's not like a code requirement on that, but I almost would think there would have to be so that it, but definitely red.
And as cute as those other ones were, no.
They
got to be red.
I definitely say no to any decoration. It just adds to the clutter on the street.
Yeah.
Okay, so
unless it was like right beside a kid's playground or something, special requirement or request there for something like that. But
all right.
Okay. And that's it. We're done.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Please. I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
I've got to pee and I'm so cold.
All in favor. Aye.
I'll make a motion too.